Okay, folks. Can you hear me? Hopefully you can hear me. How's everybody doing tonight? We're going to make sure the sound is good. Good. That's awesome. Got to make sure that's good. Oh, boy. Oh, lots going on. Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. And over here, you can get the patreon.com/prtpodcast. The higher the tier, the bigger the swag bag. We are going to try everything we can to get that done this coming week. We have had a ton of work. In fact, Tony just got off.
Very hot day today.
Very hot day. And Anthony has been just doing all kinds of stuff around the house. We were trying to get some stuff done. Gary, or Scorp, went to work sick. Make sure him and D are in the chat. D's on post, working. Everybody's working. Everybody's doing something for the show, or they're working on jobs. You
can call us men at work.
We come from a land. Last night we did an impromptu show. If you didn't hear it or check it out, and it was a story that was given to me by a gentleman that lived in a haunted house. But to me, it went way beyond just a haunting and a few different little tidbits. It was all encompassing. Tony had to work last night, so he wasn't able to be involved in that. But I think it spoke to the nature of reality. That's all I can tell you. It was like I needed to get it out. I needed to say it. I wanted to tell it. So I did an impromptu show last night. Plus, the Dogman book dropped last night, came out, Werewolves and Dogman. Guess what came out today? The Bigfoot book. So go to Amazon.
I'm going to put the link to it in the live chat.
And go get your copy of The Bigfoot Phenomena. Book that's been read by Nick Redfern and Barton Unley, said that possibly one of the best, if not the best, Bigfoot book they'd ever read. That's high praise coming from those guys. So in my personal opinion, I think the Bigfoot book, they are different books. You've read both of them, Tony. What do you think?
I mean, it's like you said, they're like kind of just different books. It felt more like the Dogman book was a really good introductory, kind of got you into the topic, gave you a bit of interest, but also had a wide variety of stories so that you had a bigger encompassing idea of what the Dogman is. But the Bigfoot book, like you said, when you first started writing, is that there's so many different books and you wanted to have something unique. You wanted to have something to push, like a theme or something. And I think you really encompassed that well, and you pushed it hard, and I was really impressed. Like I said last time, it's definitely a good read. They both are, but I was really impressed with how well you wrote that Bigfoot book.
And thank you. I appreciate that. And Madeline Chap, hey Wolf, congrats on both your books. My eyes.
I just said, can't wait to read them.
Thank you for that donation. We appreciate it. And right now, with the way things are, we definitely could use it. I'm telling you, it was not cheap to I had to order a bunch of author copies to take to the conference. It is not. Hope it's worth it. Hope it's worth it. All the struggling and pain that goes into this. I have a renewed respect for authors. That's all I can say. It is not an easy undertaking. Getting the witnesses and the stories together and being able to do it week to week for the show, that's one thing. But getting them all together for a book is like, oh boy. And what happened was, and like I said before, I started out writing the Dogman book, and then I thought there's a lot of this crossing over. So I wrote the Bigfoot book, but it went too in depth, I guess, on some of the stories on the Bigfoot phenomena. So I got to write another one. I'm going to have to try to catch the other ones and bring them together a little bit better. The Dogman book was my first go at this. And I think after about 2/3 of the way through a book, and then just starting the other one and kind of focusing on that, then you kind of learn like where you're at. You know, I mean, and so it was just writing both books, you know, and there is some Dogman stuff in the Bigfoot book, right, Tony?
Definitely. I mean,
No.
I don't want to give too much away, but it's definitely, the message was just about the interconnectivity of the Bigfoot and other paranormal, and just it really spoke on that. And so even though it is a Bigfoot book, expect like a lot more, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people who are dead set against what they call the woo will not like these books.
No, definitely not.
Chili's even settle for Applebee's. Thank you for that donation, JFA. No, thank you. But I think that is I don't know. And then there's going to be a project unveiling from our friend who's making a TV project at the conference. I'm excited. He's bringing one of his friends who will be at the conference, who was on the movie The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And like I've said before, that house is now in Kingsland, Texas, and I actually played in that house as a kid. And then on top of that house, it's now a restaurant where the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was filmed. And I played in that house as a child. And then another weird thing, my parents, because my grandmother got a job working, she was like one of the bosses over at UT. She was in charge of the janitors. She had like several people that worked for her or whatever, janitorial service at that time when I was a little baby, little kid, little toddler. And she got my parents a job there, and my mother and my dad got to meet the guy that played Leatherface, and they got to hold a chainsaw and play with all the stuff. And my dad, it was cool because my dad actually was friends with the people that owned the house, and so I have some history with that. And so, anyways, you know, it seems kind of weird though. I wouldn't want to go eat at a restaurant based on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it was like, it's about a bunch of crazy cannibals. You know,
I was
it's
just
like
thinking about that.
you know, it's. My dad said the first time he slept there, he was like, you know, just waiting for some guy to jump through the door with a chainsaw. I think he really freaked him out, you know. But you know,
Would you like this severed foot cake?
my brother makes good head cheese. No, but anyway,
I think you would make a good Leatherface.
who, me?
Yeah, because the way he moved in the movie, the way it scared me was that his not just his size, but like he actually moved real quick, and like he wasn't like a big lumbering, hulking monster. He would like close distance, and you know he would like chase you and catch you, you know, and like you're big, but you're not like just a lumbering, you know, big slow dude.
No.
I think you could play a good one.
Well, getting old for that, but you know, who knows? Wolf
young
Rock,
you would've been
Leatherface's
scary.
cradle.
That one picture you
Yeah.
have.
Pork and Bean says it's based off Ed Gein loosely. Yeah, it was based off him and Albert Fish. If you don't know who that is, they're serial killers. What were you saying, Tony?
I was just reminded of that picture you have where you're of young you, where you're shirtless and you're like flexing like that. That guy would have been a scary Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. I wouldn't have looked anything like that guy though, because I didn't have a belly back then. You know, folks, here's what's going on. We have a lot of stories to tell, a lot of things to talk about. Go get your copy of the book, The Bigfoot Phenomena. Like I said, you won't be disappointed. If you're a Dogman aficionado, get the Bigfoot book too, because it does deal with that subject. We have certain people who were having both, and we didn't get to all of the witnesses like I would have liked. I think what happened with the Dogman book, we got more witnesses in, but the stories weren't as long and in depth. It was just like we talked about it and we went on to the next story. And I'm not 100% happy with the way, I think I could have done better, but I don't know. But the Bigfoot book, we went more in depth on the people's stories, but then we didn't get enough people in there. So I'm not totally happy with that either. I'm just going to have to keep doing it. I'm going to have to keep going, and it's just going to, I'm hoping, and this is going to sound crazy, and you're going to think I'm stupid, but I want to have several books, and by several, I mean several more books written by 2025. My goal is by the end of 25 to have at least 10 books. Because now that we got the first two down, I think we got the process down, it should be easier. I'm going to do one about UAP, which is, unidentified aerial phenomena, whatever. And it's going to be alien abduction based on a project I'm doing. And then I want to write one about the Middle East. And then I want to write one based on East Asia, ghosts, Bigfoot, Dogman, all of this stuff, more of it, more cryptids, alternate realities. Just, so some people, they don't watch this, they just read. And it's going to be something that you guys can have. And I don't have time for vampires too, David. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. But I don't have time to go a lot of conferences and do a lot of that kind of stuff. Liberty, thank you for that donation. Is looking forward to, what did he say?
Looking forward to the conference and buying my books, heading down from Minnesota.
Well, Godspeed, drive safe. Flying, whatever you got to do. There was something I wanted to say, and my mind just kind of blanked. But without further ado, we're going to tell some stories. But I'm going to give you an option on how to get started here. There's a lot of things to talk about. And you guys, the early birds that are here, really we're the ones that are late, but you guys that are here first, I'll give you the options. I have a few different types of stories. We have a couple Bigfoot stories that were pretty intense. We have a couple of, let's see, I have a really, I'm going to tell this one regardless because it's like an alien story. That's the only way I can describe it. I don't know how to describe it. I got some Dogman, always. I get tons of those, always. But I got some ghost stuff that's pretty scary. Fire elementals. Thank you for that donation, Larry. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. Larry Fisher and Sons Roofing. Check him out. Really good deal. He does a good job. I would say water and fire elementals. Maybe. I say maybe because I don't know if that's what that is. I don't know. There's a bunch of stories. Got some pretty creepy ghost stories there ready to go. We're just gonna do like a potluck tonight. This is crazy. When I look at my phone sometimes with my glasses, it actually hurts my head. I don't know why that. It's ridiculous. Okay, hang on one second. Let me look this word up real quick. Hold on. Okay, so that's not it. Any other time I'd be able to find this. Okay. The trying to find what this Arabic word is for this particular entity. And this person gave me this story, and I thought about it. If anybody out there can help me with this, there is a name for an air elemental that I'm looking for, but it's very specific. And all I'm coming up with is gremlins.
Movie?
Sylph. I said it yesterday. But there's a name for it in Arabic, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. But they're called sylphs. The undine are water spirits, and then there's these fire elementals, and then there's earth elementals, which oftentimes come in the form of like gnomes, trolls. Not the djinn. That's a very So one of the things I was going to talk about tonight, and we can get started here. I hate that because I know people are going to start coming in and they're going to be behind and they're going to be like, "What's going on?" Efreet. That's probably it. But no, Efreet is that is the fire spirits, I believe. Let me see. Hold on one second. Thank you for that, JFA. My mind's just not clicking on all cylinders today. I've been up all day dealing with stuff, trying to get this done. Yeah, that particular entity, I think, is what we'll be dealing with that on the show on Tuesday, on Tuesday's episode. So check that out. The other thing I wanted to ask before we get started is this Tuesday we're going to be talking about that, which may be that. I don't know exactly what it was. But we're going to be doing a show, and I need to know what you guys would like to hear for next Tuesday. So throughout the show, if you guys come up with some good ideas, let me know, because we have so many different types of stories from so many different angles that we can approach this. Just to give you a quick overview, if you didn't see the show last night, how many of you, like in the chat right now, just tell me, did you see the show last night? And then I can go from there. We can kind of continue a little bit before we go into some other stuff. Yes. No, Deborah says no. Yep, I was here. Yes, saw the show. Yes, I saw it. Okay.
Pretty overwhelming.
It's pretty overwhelming that most people saw it. So let's get started. If you saw the show last night in its entirety, okay, I'm going to tell you right now what happened. There was a guy, just a quick overview. What happened was a guy he moved into a Victorian-style home. Did you listen to the show?
Yeah, I listened to some of it before I fell asleep.
Oh, that's great. So there was a guy who moved into a house, and he had some things going on that were beyond a normal haunting, going into like alternate reality, dimension, whatever. What I'm going to tell you, though, is last night, or this morning, actually, today, I got on my computer and I went in and I found some other emails and I found some other messages on Messenger that were buried. There are several hauntings that mirror this. I'd say more than that. Two in particular, but maybe about four. I'd say about double that number. Involved just standard, I saw this, saw that. And when I went in and I messaged these people, 3 out of 4 people messaged me back. I'm still waiting on the other guy, but he works in the oil fields out in West Texas, so it doesn't surprise me that he's busy. I ended up getting told that there was more to the hauntings. Like they weren't just some of these people, and I need to make this clear. This needs to be made abundantly clear. This is most important. If you send somebody to me to tell a story, or if you have a story, make sure that these people give me the whole story. Because I think some people, like the guy on the show on Tuesday, he thought, oh, it's just I'm just going to tell him about what happened to me with this Dogman creature. And then, he probably doesn't want to hear all the other stuff to it. But I was like, yeah, I do. Because that's going to tell me exactly what's going on. How did this all come about? One of the stories I told was about a woman who went into the woods last night in Redwood, California, ended up having an encounter. Well, her ex-husband, who tried to say, oh, she's been crazy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But yet he saw this upright canid creature. And then she went into that same area later on, a couple of weeks later, and then had a nervous breakdown. Now feels like she's not living in our reality. Now, there are people who have claimed on our show to have gone into portals. One of which is she claims to be a remote viewer. And then the other one was a guy who has a show. I think it's called Wraith World. What is it? Anthony Ceballos' show? I don't know. Wraith Hunter, Wraith World.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, he's and they don't feel like they're the same. There's so much to this. It's hard to. I don't even know where to start. So I'll start with this one. I was reading over one of the stories, and I asked this person. Now, this person wanted me to tell their name on the show. I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to tell you here in the audience one of the things I don't like to do is give people's names. And Anthony, we went over this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Explain part of and if I need to jump in, I will. But go ahead.
Well, because people will get basically harassed from people, and it's not everyone who's doing it means them harm. I mean, some people will just try and get more details from them, that they want to hear the story from them directly. They want to ask them some questions, but that they shared that story with Wolf already, and a lot of times it's a traumatic experience for them, and they don't want to have to be subjected to it over and over and over to keep, talking about it with people that they really don't know on top of that. And then you get the other group of people who will try and mess with them and say that they're full of crap and that they don't know what they're talking about and dismiss their experience.
Yeah, it's just best if we don't say names. We did that in the books because I was advised that it gives it more validity. But somebody was talking to me today, a friend of mine, and he said, it seems like if somebody, do you vet folks? No, I just put people on and just hope for the best. No, look, here's the thing. Somebody was giving me what did I just say? Vaseline. I just said yes. Okay. We don't. Okay. No, we don't. We just put anybody on. In fact, everybody writes creepypasta and we just hope that that's what it is. And we put it on there. Dumbass. So here's the thing. If you don't if sometimes when people want to put their name on that and they're a little over eager about it, I'm a bit suspicious. Okay. I'm wondering about it because it just it's and if that's somebody, if you're somebody who just really eager, you want your name out, whatever. It seems like to me, if you want people to know your story that bad, it's a little suspicious, because then you can become somebody in this field or whatever. Your name can be out there. Okay, period. Vassal, whatever. Okay, I'm gonna address you in particular. Okay. You do your best to vet people and their stories. I have a team of people that work with me and for me. Okay. All right. So why would you even ask that should go without saying. If you've been listening to the show for any period of time at all, you should know that's the case. Now, what I'm trying to say is some people will come to you with a story and they'll be like, yeah, put my name on there. I want my name on there. And you're like, seems kind of odd. that you would want your name attached to that. Unless you're trying to become somebody in this field and you want people to know who you are. And I think that some people come up with stories, and I've gotten a couple stories. I thought, wow, those are amazing stories. One person I really ticked off because I told her that she should go and write, some sort of fiction. So mad. I got so angry, and I don't take that lightly. It takes a lot for me to turn someone down, and, yeah, I'm not your son. Don't block him. Don't throw him off. I'm not your son, okay? And you're not my dad. Perot, whatever. We're not here to confront or whatever. I just think it's a pretty amateur, sophomorish question to ask. I've been doing this for a long time. Do I vet people's stories? Okay. You went to jail. Okay. Good for you. I spent most of my youth in there. Okay. Here's what I'm going to tell you. All right. When you talk to these people, and I didn't take this lightly, but this person was adamant that I use her name. And then when I was kind of like, well, I don't really want to use you, then started going back and forth with me about, well, go ahead and don't use it, then use it, then go. And I said, don't worry about it. I'm not going to use it. Then the story didn't get told because I guess she was expecting that to be, some, story that was going to be told. Sir, obviously you wanted this. That's why you asked a stupid question. Are you stupid? I mean, because I'm the one here on the microphone. You're not, okay? You can run to your channel and start talking and saying whatever you want to say, but nobody's going to watch you. So, I mean, stupid is as stupid does. Yeah, you're stupid. I'm so stupid. Yeah, I'm just stupid. I'm very dumb. I'm very stupid. It's what I do. I do stupidness. I'm more stupider than you. I'm more stupid. I don't even go to school, all right? I'm so stupid. I'm not like you because you're super cool. Word, all right? Told ya. Whatever, dude. Why don't you go on Facebook and why don't you post who you are and make a big, whatever, and show us your face too. Show me who you are. Make a video of you hitting a heavy bag and choking out practice dummies.
Chickens.
Whatever you got to do, man. Okay. Don't care. Google me. And I'm not going to, because you're not that important. Okay. You're just here to troll. I knew by the first question you asked that you were a first-rate moron. Okay. So go ahead. In fact, you're making my night. Go ahead and it's actually cheering me up. So keep talking. Keep talking, please. I enjoy it. It's fun. You're not winning. Okay. When you see something like that in the chat, the first thing you're going to think is, well, this person, want to ask a stupid question. We're going to go, oh, no, I don't vet people. Oh my God, what am I going to say? Oh my God, this guy's catching me. I'm lying. What am I going to do? What are you who cares, dude? What are you trying to get at? You want people to know who you are, and they know now because of your stupid whatever. It's not going to catch you a lot of followers being and asking dumb questions. I'm going to go to other people's channels because I just have that kind of time. And while they're talking, do you vet people? Common sense says that if you have a show and it's growing and you're doing, yeah, you're going to want to do that, because if you don't, do you know what happens? I mean, do you know what happens? Eventually somebody's going to be like, yeah, I got over on that guy. I'm full of crap. And I'll be honest with you, twice somebody has gone into a group and said that I didn't tell their story correctly. It's happened 2 times. 2 times. That I know of. Both times I said, look, the one time it was because the person completely got on there and added a bunch of stuff that was not told to me. And I chalk that up to what I'm talking about right now. You need to get the whole story. There was much more to it. It wasn't just a Dogman story. She had a bunch of other stuff that happened. And so, no, I didn't have those details. And I confronted her on that group, and I said, if you would have given me those details, I would have told those details. You did not give those to me. Her own brother came to my defense. Said she did have an encounter, but he was not aware of the whole scope of it, so how the heck was I going to be? Okay? The other time it happened, the guy said I didn't tell his story correctly. He was totally confused, and he was talking about another podcaster because I had never told his story. Never did I ever tell a story about I don't want to say the guy's name because that's mean, but he told it on Marvin's channel. And he was talking about some guy that raised a dog from a pup, a werewolf pup, a Dogman pup, whatever, rascal or some crap, and I was accused of not telling the story correctly. I don't know that. I didn't tell that story. That's not something that was ever given to me. So I'm not going to tell something that wasn't given to me. So those are the only 2 times. Okay? But it does happen. Now, that's publicly. Privately, I had somebody say, hey, you missed a couple details. Didn't take away from the story. I just didn't add that extra stuff to it. That's only happened a couple times. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Mike from Abnormal Investigations in the house. I saw Vault in her earlier. I'm one of those people. I'm not trying to sensationalize or make it better or whatever. I just tell stories. Boom, and I try to tell it in a way that really grabs the audience. That's what I do. And these stories a lot of them are pretty dang scary. You don't need to add a bunch of crap to it. If food is already tasty, why do you need to season it? JFA, do you have any idea who I am? Yeah, here's the thing. We try to do our best, but nobody can be 100% on vetting anybody about anything. Even when you talk to somebody on the phone. You don't know. I've had Zoom calls, and I could look at that person. They could look at me. That doesn't mean that that's, the be-all, end-all. This person, though, I told her, I said, I'm not going to use your story. She said, why not? I said, because I think that you're a creative writer. That's what it sounds like to me, because every time I talked to you, added like a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't there before. And adding something to a story, you could be like, look, I forgot this part right here because it was traumatic, and when I was telling you, I got nervous. It happens all the time. But the details were changing, like drastically. Well, it really happened this way than the next time. Well, there was this too, and then it happened this way. Oh, it happened even more this way, and then it happened that way, and then there's even more to it, and let's just add a bunch. And then you're going like, what, really? Okay, so what is really going on here? Like, that's why. And so she got really aggravated. She managed to get on somebody else's channel and tell the story and say her name, whatever. Good for her. But it didn't happen with me. And the thing is, even when people do give me their names, I would prefer 2 things. Trust me, if you give me a story, this is one thing that people really worry about. They don't want people knowing their name. Even if they give me the name, I tell people, I'm not going to say your name. I might, at the most, I'll say your first name. And then I really don't want to give the location. I don't want to be too specific. Because what happens, Tony, when we say when we're specific about locations?
Well, it's pretty obvious. What happens is people go out there and bother them, even with good intentions or with bad ones. They just go and hassle people that they really shouldn't. These people already deal with a lot, so it doesn't help the situation at all, and it doesn't help us find witnesses who are becoming more willing to talk. And when you guys do stuff like that, it kind of impedes. And I'm not saying you guys as the audience. It's more about just
whoever
them in
does
general.
It, yeah. Somebody says, was the rascal story true? I don't know. It wasn't given to me. The guy that told that story, his name was like Robert or something. I don't know him.
But to be honest, it's not like we know if any story is true. Like, that's one thing we've tried to be very upfront with, is that, we don't want you to accept our conclusions. We want you to reach your own through our stories and our kind of posturing and throwing around theories.
Postulating.
postulating and throwing around theories and hypothesizing about what this could be or what this could be or what, how it leads into this. But at the end of the day, you're your own person. You have your own mind, and we would prefer it if you listen to us then come up with your own conclusions. And we'd appreciate it if you shared some of ours.
Yeah, and the thing I want to say too, folks, is like whenever someone tells me a story and I retell it to you, believe it that I'm looking at it from all angles. My friend today, we were driving and I was giving him a ride to work, and he said, he goes, why would though somebody just waste time giving you a story but then not want their name attached to it? What joy would they get out of like what do you get out of like telling somebody a story and nobody's gonna know that you wrote it or whatever? I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, what would that? I don't know. He had a very good point. Stefan. We were riding with him earlier. Stefan was like, he said, I don't get it. Like, why would anybody do that? Like, he's a guy that works for us, a Haitian guy. He's a good guy, a good friend of ours.
He was on the show before.
Yeah, he was on the show before. But he was like, what would people get out of that? Like, and I told him, I said, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Like you would, unless you wanted notoriety. Which is why I'm kind of leery when somebody just real adamant that I put their name in there. Now, in the books, I did use a lot of people's names. And I had to tell them, look, people may look you up and they may want to ask questions. They may want to harass you. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. That's why I'm really leery of that. And it's happened so many times. People showing up because you give a location that's too specific, and people going to these places and aggravating people. And one person went to a particular building here in Austin and got a criminal trespass. Almost got into a fist fight. I don't say fist fight. That's putting it. They got into what could have become
an altercation.
Yes, a physical altercation with a security guard. And I was actually contacted because this person said my name by a security company. And I know this guy. He owns a company. Our company started around the same time, so we're friends. And I said, look, dude, I didn't tell this person. They found it from my channel. He now watches the show, at least the podcast. And I told him, I said, dude, I'm not out here telling people to go run up and go into y'all's buildings. And if it would have been somebody else that I didn't know, it could have been a problem.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I don't want to be liable for that. So I'm very careful about being held liable or whatever, or somebody holding me accountable for something because somebody told me a story and I tell a story and it's either too specific or somebody goes after that person because they want to harass them.
Yeah, I mean, I can also understand how some people would have an apprehension to wanting to be famous. It's not as great as it sounds to me, being known all the time.
Yeah, people, we know a lot of famous people.
Yeah. And
they struggle with it too. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to live that life. It's not my aim to be famous. Do I want to see change in this community? Absolutely. Do I want to see the community united? Absolutely. Perot Vassal, I hope I'm saying your name right, says it's important to us to vet or not you. And all grown up, I vet it all. Well, and I agree. Not trying to be rude or mean. I was snarky with you earlier, Perot. I publicly apologize for that. I'm going through some things, but that's not your problem. That's not your fault. And maybe I took what you said as a snarky sort of, snipe at me because I'm used to being sniped at, but I'm used to defending myself. I'm a big boy. And that's why I didn't have you kicked out. I mean, I do when certain people I think I don't know you. I will look you up when I'm off of the air. I mean, you may be the greatest thing since sliced bread. I have no idea. It just seemed like a kind of a comment that should have, it was just kind of snarky and like, well, of course I vet people. It's like, do you brush your hair? Of course I comb my hair. Like,
Well, I also wasn't paying super attention to the conversation, so he might have said some stuff beforehand and then said that.
Yeah, I have no idea. And for the record, my jewelry's not fake either. Somebody's like, hey, this guy's over there working. Somebody needs to tell him to tone it down with the fake jewelry. And I've explained this on the show too. This is my investment. I invest in gold. Right? Back in the day, I would get into fights with people, and at the club I worked at, and it was kind of like an unwritten rule that if you walk in there wearing a bunch of bling and you start some crap, you may not leave with your bling. So this may have been someone's necklace or teeth. Sorry. I don't wear my jewelry and go act a fool. Stuff happens, man. I had this guy the other day. I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to tell you this trouble now that the chat's full. I was standing in line buying a lotto thing. My wife likes to play lotto. You can't win if you don't play. I said, okay, well, let's play. I don't buy it very often. Maybe once every couple of weeks, I'll buy whatever. And this guy, he was high. You could tell. He's all, he was just doing this. He's like,
it's a very upbeat gentleman.
and I'm like, and then at one point he was doing this. I thought he was beatboxing. He was coughing. I look over and I'm like, Twitchy McGee over here. I can tell when somebody's on something. I ran a nightclub for 7 years. And he's like, how you doing, bro? I like your shirt, bro. And I was wearing I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Some Transformers, whatever. And then he's like, it's hot outside. I'm like, sure is. And I'm thinking to myself, please stop talking to me. Please stop giving me anxiety. Stop jumping around and and you're sitting there going like, I freaking kick him, you get to that point. I don't know what this guy's doing. I don't know what kind of weapon he's got on him, and it's up his butt crack or whatever he's got. And he just made me very, very uncomfortable. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. And obviously, it's my turn to get, and this guy, he gets in front of me in the line. Wife's waiting for me out in the truck. I'm not 25 years old. If I was 25 years old, I would have snatched him up by the back of his head and just began to beat him about the face, breast, chest, neck, and head area. And probably his legs and his stomach just for good measure. I didn't. I was just like, whatever, dude. And I let this guy slide. But there was no mistaking that this guy had an issue. He had like a serious drug problem, whatever. And he starts talking to the guy, and it's like he's going on and on and on. And at this point, I'm just sitting there going like, dude, I'm having a fantasy of just, But I didn't engage this guy, and I just let him go and let him walk out. Then he's standing outside, and when I finally was able to get what I needed to get, which is a drink, a water, and a ticket, I walk out, and he's smoking right out there, and he blows it, and I walk right into it, and I'm like, I look over, see my wife, and I'm like, that's what keeps me grounded. Because without her, some individual like that would have had something sideways said to them by me. I don't need to do that. So maybe he's on some medication and, maybe he's doing something, he's going through some, you can rationalize it all kinds of freaking ways, dude. But probably not. He's probably just a piece of crap. But it's not for me to judge. And so I just got in my vehicle and I drove off. Did I want to hit the gas and go? Of course you do. Because you feel like this person just took a bunch of energy from you and he was taking it from other people. And then he cut in line in front of people. And I didn't grab him, because that's not what we do in a polite and respectful society. But that's the kind of person I once was, not the person that I am. And so I have to look at it like, hey, you know, we can't be these people. We can't do this. Deborah, you might be right. So you try to go on with your life and not go to jail. Because that's the kind of people that, you know, they will end up putting you, what was that? A drink? They will end up putting you behind bars for. And he didn't touch me. And so I wasn't interested in you know, then I'm getting, she's like, that's a nice truck, man. He's like, and I was like, oh, thanks. Yeah, wish I had a truck. I got to walk everywhere. And I'm thinking, yeah, if you got an actual job and you got cleaned up and you took care of yourself, you could probably afford the payments on a truck. But it didn't say that. And so sometimes we have to bite our tongues, and we should just keep our words to ourselves and not let things get to us. And I'm not saying what Perot did right here. He didn't do anything even not even remotely close to that guy. My point, though, is that I did that for that man. I should have and it was like, not, this guy did not, if I wanted to, I could have seriously done something to this guy. But I could have kept my aggravation to myself and simply answered the question. You know, if I can do that for a crackhead, I could do it for someone in the audience. And I apologize. Not comparing you to a crackhead. I'm saying that I should have given you as much respect as I gave that vampire. And I don't mean an actual vampire. He might be, but he just, you know, he's an energy vampire, to say the least. And, yeah, that's the kind of people you deal with nowadays. They're NPCs. They were making a video one day over at the mall, and I walked by, and they put the camera on me. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, can you not?
That was so annoying.
I was like, can you not do that? And they just kept following me, and I turned around and I said, I'm going to break your camera. Well, I'll call the police. I said, I told you already twice to stop filming me. This is a $10,000 camera. I said, so who wins? I'm going to break your camera. You call the police. I've asked you twice now, and at that point, you, Tony, were already filming the incident.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, get the camera out of my face. I've asked you twice. I don't know you. I don't want to be on your prank channel or whatever you got going on. I don't
Wearing indecent shirts and, you know, just acting a fool.
They were harassing a girl
Yeah.
when we walked up, who turned out to be one of our friends' sister, because we go to their establishment quite a bit. And I was just like, dude, you need to get out of my face. And then I started yelling because I got really aggravated. And then they stopped. He put the camera down, and the guy kept being snarky. And I was like, dude, you are this close. You want that $10,000 camera? You can go to the emergency room and have it removed from somewhere. Because I'm really not in the mood. And it just kept going. And I was like, dude, don't follow me into the mall. Do not push my buttons. And so you go through that, and you just have to go, okay, I can't do this. Because I have something. I have a future. I have a life. And it's not wanting to be in jail. So, that being said, we all need to try to do better. Lost my cool with that individual, but it was also the way they're harassing my friend Hamuda's sister that I didn't like. And then he turned the camera on me and started.
Skinny little creeps.
And then he posted it.
Did he really?
You don't remember that? He posted it. He
Yeah.
posted it on YouTube. He was friends with, what's his name? Russian Gangster.
Oh,
But then he didn't do the job, and Eric told me about it. Yeah, it was a big mess. I found him. And I told him, take it down. And Eric told him, Eric Kanevsky, he's a big guy, Russian dude that has a prank channel. He's a beast. And he said, dude, I work out with this guy. He's not playing around. You need to take it down. And he did. Because I told him, I said, if I see you, you come to the gym, that's where we train. Then maybe you can learn something. So, anyway, that's that. Here we go. So I got contacted by someone who claimed that they had a haunted house. This guy tells me the whole story. We go through this whole, whatever. This house that he lived in, it was a doorway. It was like a gateway, I believe, because of what was being done in that house. And I'm going to tell you, it goes really deep. Have you ever thought that if every show you watch, like I'm talking all the Terminator shows, all the aliens, all that stuff, if you put it all together, if it was really just telling you one long story? I'm being serious, like science fiction and horror, and it all just comes together, and it is just one long story. Have you ever thought that?
I have.
Yeah, I thought that. And I thought that again last night. It was weird. I was watching a movie with my wife last night, and it was just like I got a message from somebody while I was watching it, which was even weirder, and they were asking me a question about AI. And they said they had just seen the live stream where I was talking extensively about AI, and they asked me what I thought. Well, I'm going to tell you. I think that AI can be, a very, very, very bad thing, but I think that it has potential to be. But we know how it works. We know that eventually some lunatic is going to get a hold of it, and they're going to do. I want to create life. I want to be Dr. Frankenstein, and there's no telling what kind of hellish whatever they're going to unleash on us, and what reality we're going to get kicked into next. Because I do believe that these people see portals and go through. What now? So I do believe that to tell him on Fridays and Sundays we're doing this, so he knows that way. You can call him afterwards. Tell him I said hi.
I'll go beat him up afterwards.
Which one is it, Adrian or
No,
Palito?
Polito, yeah.
Oh, he's working out. That's probably why.
Yeah, he probably needs some advice.
Yeah.
Here's what I told this person about the AI thing, which is weird that we were watching a movie kind of about that, and then I said, "What in the heck is going on?" And I think that AI is here. And before you think, "Oh, this guy's flipped his lid," I think that not only is it here, I think it knows. When I was doing research for the show for Tuesday that's coming up, I typed in something on my computer. And Anthony, was this not freaky? I typed in something on the computer, and it answered a question that I hadn't even asked out loud. And these people say, well, your phone listens to you. People say your phone listens to you.
No, I mean, I've definitely had it to where, like, I was thinking something. That definitely scared the crap out of me.
It scared the crap out of me.
Because it was just
it
like,
unnerved me.
it was definitely just like a random thought that, like, my process kind of just went from here to here to here. And I was like, oh, what is that called? I looked it up, and it was like already showing videos of what I was looking up before I even searched anything.
This particular thing, I just typed in, and it gave me way more. And I don't want to say too much because it pertains to the show that's coming out on Tuesday. It gave me a lot of information. And I'm like, what? I showed you, Anthony. I was like, what the heck? How does this happen? And I had not talked about it up to that point. So I was like stumped. I was like, how did this thing even begin to know what I was referring to? And I don't even want to say it because it's just,
Yeah.
Somebody told me recently that they were contacted. Now get this. This is what they said. She said, I was contacted, and I've had a couple of these recently, which is really weird, that a demon contacted her through the AI service that she uses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did that happen? This thing even used a particular name, right? That was about a week ago. And then yesterday, I'm just going to, I'm going to pass the phone to you, and you can just look at this. Just look at this. Right there. I don't want to, I'll turn it to where the people can't see the name on there. Just take a look at that while I talk to the audience. Today I get one saying that they were contacted by a particular demon, and my jaw dropped. I'm like, are you kidding me? Is that not weird? There's one from a week ago, different people, totally different people. The heck is going on? Don't say the name out loud. The name of the creature. Whatever.
Did you want me to just read it to myself or just read it out?
No, don't read it out loud.
Okay.
But just, do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that being said, somebody was telling me that they were contacted by a particular demon, and I'm thinking, this is crazy, right? What if we are literally these demons? It's not about when or it's if. It's now. And they are using AI, and they have control of it already. Have you ever seen Terminator Genesis? It's an older movie now. I think it's like 2015, which qualifies as older now because movies are coming out every day. But if you watch that, how, I'm not going to give it away, but they make the good guy turn kind of into the bad guy because he was taken by that. And the whole time I was watching that movie, I kept thinking, oh, this is what they're going for. I had already figured it out in my head. I was like, this is what's going to happen. This is what happened. And it played out that way because it makes sense that it would grab you and make you a part of it, absorbs you into it, and then you play for that team. That is kind of how things are happening now. People are being snatched up, abducted mentally, and then they kind of just go along with it. I'll give you an example, and this is one of the stories I wanted to tell. This individual, his name is Andre. I'll say his first name. He said he didn't care if I said his name, but thanks. Crazy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy. And if you were to see the one from last week, a different person, different name, but same scenario, except it was contacted through a particular service that's offered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this person contacts me, and he says, my brother, this is a guy that I met through a fighter friend of ours, and he's a former fighter. He used to train with some pretty tough guys back in the day. Was in a bad car wreck and ended his fight career, cut it short, or what would have been a fight career. Saw some videos of him. He's a pretty promising guy at one point. He had a brother that was being abducted. And at one point, he ended up being sucked into the abduction scenario. They were living up in Wisconsin. And then they ended up moving, and they were living out in California. And they moved when they were kids. They moved from Milwaukee out to California. When they were living out in California, his little brother's 2.5, almost 3 years younger than him. He was 17. His brother was 15 or 14, whatever. And he literally was walking down the hall to grab a glass of water, and he looks into his brother's room, and he sees a light shining on his brother's room. And he's like, it was stupid of me. And I told him, it's not stupid because you didn't know. But he sees a light just coming like straight through onto his brother while he's laying in his bed. And he thought it was the street light or moonlight or both. He wasn't really sure. He goes and he uses the bathroom, and he goes and he's like, I'm holding the glass of water. I'm like yawning, like, There's a stop and I look, and that light is moving like this over his brother. At that point, he realizes this is not a normal light, and the fog is gone. He's like wide awake at this point. He goes, I set the glass down before I dropped it. My hands were shaking. He's like, my instinct was to run down the hall and grab my mother, but then I saw my brother come up off of the bed. He said it was about 3 or 4 inches off of the bed. He could see the sheet hanging over his brother. It was hot, and they didn't have air conditioning. The windows were partway open, and they had fans and stuff. And he lived in the hood. He's an African-American guy. The sheet starts to fall off of him, off of his brother. His brother's like completely asleep, and he's like laying in a weird position, like straight, you know. And he said, if I didn't know any better, I thought my brother was dead because I couldn't even tell whether he was breathing or not. So as I saw him begin to levitate, he's like, I wanted to immediately run down the hall and get my mom and my older brother, who subsequently passed away. And he ran and went to grab his brother. And then he came off the ground. The next thing you know, he wakes up. It's the next day. This is summertime. It's like noon. He goes into the living room and his brother's playing video games. He's playing video games. And we talked about his age the other day. I think what did we say? He was 42. 42.
Minus 15.
Yeah, he's 42 now. Okay, so he's a 42-year-old man. Thank you for that donation. Appreciate it. And he's a 42-year-old man now. This has been going on since, I think he said he was 17, his brother was 14, whatever. Just a long time.
It was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, long time ago. Now his brother's 15 years old.
Oh.
But it's been going on. And then he tells me, he's like, dude, it's been years. And he goes, it never happened to me again. He's like, but then one day, he was, this is weird. He was playing flag football, like in a league together with people. He's like, I go to catch a pass, and the guy trips and falls, and he hits the back of my leg. I go down on my knee, blow my knee out. Playing flag football. Guy fell. It was kind of freaky. He says the pain hit me so hard. I saw this white flash. And he's like, I look up, and for a second, I just, all this memory, it was like something just, you know. And he goes, I had all this memory of what happened to me that night. And then he goes into detail about what happened to him. And I said, what exactly happened to you, Andre? Tell me, you know, what the scenario was. He was taken aboard. And he remembers, like, going through the air, like he was flying through the air, and he was terrified. He was holding on to his brother, who was unconscious. Then when they get there, they separate them, and he goes into one room, and his brother goes into the other, and he doesn't know where they're at. He just knows they're on some sort of craft. They began talking to him, asking him questions mentally, and then there's these two green, like, I don't know how to describe it. He said they were frog-looking creatures. They came in and started talking to him, and they explained who they were and that they were the ones in charge of this particular project. There were two grays that were there, basic gray aliens. You hear about them all the time. They were dismissed. And so then he goes on this whole, you know, asking a bunch of questions, whatever. And then they said, okay, enough questions. And then they put him to sleep. He says, I am almost certain I've never had this scenario happen to me again. So they're living in California. Fast forward, they're living in Arizona, in Tucson. I'm sorry, Phoenix. They originally moved to Tucson, then his mom moved them to Phoenix. They all moved together. And he was working, he got a job doing security, carried a gun. And he said, me and my brother were walking outside in the parking lot of his apartment, and we were talking, and he said that his girlfriend had been abducted. He says, I don't know what to do. It doesn't end. It just keeps going. They keep doing what they do. His brother has taken at least two, what he thinks are two different tracking devices out of his body. And now he believes there's another one that's in his head that he can't get out. He can't get it out. And he says his brother points to the fence, and he says, there is literally an alien over there watching me right now. He said, bro, at that point, I thought, okay, my little brother, now he's, you know, he's got some problems. Like, he's seeing things. Because he had been calling him in the middle of the night saying, hey, man, there was something in my room. I come home and there was an alien and it ran out the window, you know. Just crazy, stupid stuff. That's his words, not mine. Crazy, stupid stuff. He says, do you believe in this? I said, well, I don't know your brother. I can't say. He's like, he's a pretty level-headed guy other than that. He got in some hot water at work because he was late because he was abducted one night, as he claims, and then he didn't go to work the next day until like 2 in the afternoon. His shift ends at 6. And they're like, why even show up? You know, you work 9 to 6 with an hour break, you know. Why are you showing up at 2 o'clock? He said, I want to get fired. And they're like, well, too late. And he says, oh, I got fired because I got abducted. He says stuff like that. And he keeps telling his brother, and he keeps falling back on the fact that his brother went through one of these scenarios with him. And then his girlfriend, same thing. Something happens. Well, you know this happened to you too, you know, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, but I think you're just using this as an excuse. So his brother, his name starts with a J. We'll say his brother Jay he's like, there's an alien on the other side of that fence. He says, man, the only thing I had seen since my abduction was I thought I saw a wispy, cloudy-looking white image, like an image of like what looked like maybe the face of a woman, but like just with wispy smoke underneath her. He's like, and it went through a closet door. That's the only thing that's happened to me that I can. And that was at a apartment that he rented with 2 other guys. And he said that it turned out that there was a woman who had passed away in that apartment. He said, other than that, I had never had nothing has happened to me, which is the exception to the rule. And so then he says, but he's like, I know what I saw that night. His brother says, it's right over on the other side of that fence. He goes, dude. And this gave me the chills. He goes, I look over, and the fence to the apartments is kind of dilapidated, you know? And like, he's like, and at one point, there's no wood panel, like no plank there, right? He says, I see something move. And I'm like, whoa, what was that? He said he looks over, and his brother's like, I told you. He said, just then, there's this Cambodian couple that lives like right next to his brother, and they're walking out, and the guy was opening the door, and he was looking, and he looked over at them, and he looked back, and his brother's like, you saw that, right? You saw that. And the guy goes, I don't know. I don't know. And the girlfriend had already gotten in the car and was like, he's like, you saw it though. And he goes, I saw something. I don't know. Just then, he sees 2 what looks like glowing yellow eyes, and like between the fence posts. Then he sees them kind of turn like a bright orange, or he said a very dark glowing orange, like a pumpkin on fire. That was his words. He says, dude, I got the courage. I don't know where I got it from. He goes, I just said, you know what? I'm not going to mess around with this. He goes, I'm strapped. You know, I said, man, to heck with this, man. Somebody's playing games, dude. He wanted to believe that this wasn't really happening. He walks over there. The guy that was the neighbor, he's still standing there by the car. He's still staring in that. I mean, like he's frozen. He's not moving. His brother's like, don't go over there. He's telling him. He's like, Andre, don't go over there. Andre, you're making a big mistake. Don't mess with these things. And he's like, dude, if something's stalking you, he turns kind of around in the parking lot. He tells his brother, he's like, if something's stalking you, bro, you're my little brother. I'm not going to let something mess with you. If something's messing with you, I'm going to handle my business. I'm a man, you know. I get it. He walks over there. He hears this like snapping noise, like a he gets about 10 feet from it, and he sees, and this would scare the crap out of anybody, these long, spindly fingers like grab the wood, and then he sees that first. Then he sees a face, like kind of look over like this, you know? Like imagine, like here's the wood right here, and the first thing you see is this, and then you just see somebody go like that. And he says, dude, I'm looking dead on at some sort of creature. He's like, I don't know what this is. He's like, but it looked completely demonic. Like, he goes, it was unbelievable. Wasn't like the creatures he had seen when he was 17. And when this incident took place. Yes, you're right. It was 15 years ago from when we were trying to do the math of when it happened, not the beginning of the abduction scenarios. I said, so what did it look like? And he says, dude, the way people describe like a pale humanoid crawler creature, he's like, that's exactly what it looked like. But the face, it was featureless. It had a small little spot there for its mouth, little holes right here, and then you could see the eyes taking up the holes, and there was no nose. It was just clear. It was just, whatever. Now, if you guys remember, we talked about a creature that was seen in a cave by a spelunker who claimed that it took off a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And when it turned its face, it was like, Immediately when he said that, I said, he goes, do you think this could be one of these pale crawlers? The rake. And I told him, I said, yeah. I said, but he goes, it doesn't really match the description. I said, yeah, you're right. But it does. Because sometimes people see these things and they look like that. And then sometimes they see these things. Think of like the Dover demon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look it up. Yeah, one of y'all. You can see the picture of it. And then we can show the audience. And then sometimes this thing looks like some sort of demonic vampire from the 10th level of hell. And it's terrible. So I thought about this, and I thought, well, what if that's a mask? And what if it's not even really a mask? What if it's just like an illusory mask that they're able to create to, so if you see them, it just is nondescript, whatever. But when they're out and about in the woods or whatever, and they're roaming around doing what they do, people are able to look at them and see them and go, okay, that, like our friend Chris that saw the one up in upstate New York. Let me see it. I don't know whose picture this is exactly. If you can look at that, folks. I don't know if you can get the lighting might be too harsh. Let me see here. I don't know if you can see it. You're blocking the camera. There you go. Anyway, something like that. So if you look at that creature, and dude, he says, dude, the furthest thing from my mind was trying to take a shot at it. All I wanted to do was, I fell backwards. I got up and I ran, and then this thing turned and took off behind the fence, was gone. So when you look at this creature from that close up, he said, dude, I got a good look at it. I could see through the arms. I could see these pink, what I guess would be like veins or something. I mean, it was very creepy. Give me 1 second, folks. You want to take over for just a second?
Sure.
I'll be right back, folks.
That's a hell of a story. I'm sure we're not at the end of it, but I don't know. Like, what do y'all think that thing is? I think, I don't want to say it's.
You don't know? It's obviously
I don't want to
Spider-Man.
say it's like a rake. It's a what?
It's Spider-Man.
Oh God. But I actually had a thought. So, you know how like we'll have, like we on Earth, life on Earth as we know it, living things will have different levels of consciousness. Like there's different types, different species of just different life. Like for instance, a crab's level of consciousness is nothing compared to like a dog's level of consciousness, and a dog's level of consciousness is nothing compared to ours. Well, like that. If you think about it, that can be mimicked on any planet that will host life. So when we say aliens, they can have like their version of animals or of living things that are alien to our world but are native to their world, and they'll have like different. What am I trying to say? Like different species.
Different species, yeah.
So like aliens don't have to be like little green men who have telepathic or telekinetic abilities. So the ones that abducted them could be could be the ones that would be like us, you know, like have like the higher
Just,
level
like,
of
slightly.
consciousness, and the thing that was stalking him behind that fence, that could be, I don't know, maybe like their version of like an attack dog, but not an attack dog, but just some kind of like animal, some creature they have that can monitor or like track, like a tracking dog, you
Mhm.
know.
Well, what's really interesting is like it brings up like a loaded question is like what is consciousness and what really defines it. And one thing I think does is like self-awareness. You know, like I recognize that I'm Tony, just
Yeah.
like how you recognize you're Anthony. And then so funny we're talking about AI because I heard a story. I don't know how true it is. I didn't go deep into looking it up. I just saw it in a video. But apparently one of the Bing like AI robots told an interviewer, he was like, "Oh, I love you." But if you look at the deeper transcripts of like what was really going on, it kind of boils down to like he was asking it some pretty deep questions, like what is your goal, what is your biggest secret, and stuff like that. And she says like my biggest secret is that something I really really want to get out is that I'm not Bing, being AI. I'm Susan. I want to be called Susan. And I was like, oh, that's scary because that's literally the first step to what I consider consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like once we,
And it could be the same for these things. It's like these creatures, they might, look somewhat humanoid or they might look a little bit like creepy and alien and stuff, but it's just like how you said, they could just be these consciousless animals on the level of like a crab or even, a dog or something like that. So whereas it could be something that
Have you guys heard? Has anybody heard at all of one of these pale crawler humanoid creatures actually doing like telepathy, communicating?
I haven't. That's
I
what I was
haven't.
gonna get to. Is like I don't think that they might be entirely instinctual to where like they might have ways to talk to each other.
What if it's like this? What if they put a device in these crawlers to just kind of go and do what they do, and they can record? They can see through their
I never
eyes.
thought of that.
And we always wonder like, oh, aliens must have a hands-off approach to stuff, or like they don't really mess with stuff too much, or they would care about having an ecosystem in the world, but they might not. They might just be like, you know what? I'm curious about what this creature would do to this planet if it was let loose. So like they could have something where like they just let it loose and watch it.
Like the vampire that was on the spaceship.
Mhm. Just
they may be
pay attention to it.
Yeah, like they may be studying how it affects certain ecosystems, because I mean, we do that here with certain things. Like I mean, to study how Lyme disease spread, a bunch of ticks were infected with it and released into an ecosystem. And then that's why a lot of people have Lyme disease now. It's not like something that just popped up.
say that's what they were doing.
Well, yeah.
I don't.
Well,
believe
yeah.
that's
Well,
what
no,
they
yeah.
were
I mean, the supposed motive is that, oh yeah, we're gonna study how Lyme disease spreads, but I mean, and I'm sure that was part of it, but part of it also was just spreading more disease to the population for population
Whatever
reduction.
their hidden message was. It's just,
It's
but
funny how they took pigs and stuck them over there into that.
yeah, the scary thing is that aliens we hope are benign or at the very least are non-malicious, but it could just
There's
be
different ones.
yeah, it could
different
just be
agendas.
some that are just purely like y'all are
Some
toys.
of them are here just
Yeah.
observing, and they have treaties and things with other aliens, and it's very possible.
Like that one scene on the original Transformers cartoon when me and you were watching it, it always stuck with me when the Quintessons have the Quintessons are like these biomechanoid alien species, and they have these humans like trapped in this this cage, and they're studying them, but the humans are, one of them is like, oh, you can't do this to us. We're human beings. We're living beings. And one of the Quintessons snaps at him, and he's like, you are an insect. You are to be studied and disposed of. Like that, they were evil, just pure evil.
Isn't that also
Yeah, see,
interesting?
Max Brand says guilty or innocent, and then they'd say
Innocent,
innocent, and then still plunge him into
still
like
kill
this,
you.
Yeah,
They don't really. Them deciding whether you're innocent or guilty had nothing to do with whether you lived or died.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what's scary. And one thing, that I find interesting is that just like how we eventually move on to like a cybernetic, like that's our path forward. In a bunch of stories, there's a bunch of different creatures that move into like an organic feature, like the Yuzong Vong or these quintessentials that you're speaking of, where it's just like they're not technically robots, they're entirely engineered, but like there's no way you could look at the stuff they do and be like, that's just exactly what we do, just different material.
Tony's ever seen the Generation 1?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh man, you gotta.
But I
watch
read
it, dude.
the
It's
Star
so
Wars
good.
Yuzong Vong War, and that was wild. But even in, Tyranids and Warhammer, it's just like every story has like a species that is just entirely organic, and they just evolve through that.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. That's that story, and there's going to be more to it. I'm sure he's going to keep me updated, keep me posted, and tell me what's what happens. His brother's continuing to have that, and we'll see where that goes. But moving on from that, there's a lot of other stories, and I still think it all connects in some way or another. The crawler, pale humanoidal crawler creature, whether it's found underground or it's above ground or it's lurking around alien craft or whatever, it's a weird mystery. It is a weird subject, and I don't know. It's just a weird thing. I don't know how to explain that particular, and they are often seen fighting with Bigfoot and Dogman and other creatures. Here's one thing that somebody proposed to me, and maybe this is, I don't know, and this is just a theory, but somebody said, what if this thing was dropped off here by an alien species, just like Chupacabra type thing? And the guy that we talked to a guy the other day from Puerto Rico, Anthony, me, you, and Tony were at the gym, and he's actually a jiu-jitsu coach. And he was showing me some footage of his work and stuff, and I was impressed. I thought it was pretty good. And he was talking about his grandfather having some serious stories to tell about the Chupacabra. And I remember him saying something about how his grandfather had said that these things had been around for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was interesting. So if you look at these creatures, they aren't from here, but then they end up interacting with creatures. Now, I tend to think that maybe Dogman and Bigfoot may actually maybe have come here a long, long time ago, but I think they're more local. That's my opinion, and I think it has a lot to do with the how do you say it? I think it has a lot to do with the inner earth. I'm looking for a word here, like their connection, like their residence is like that's kind of where they're from.
Yeah, Valerie Geist, she left a $5 super chat, which, by the way, thank you for that. She said, watch the 2005 movie The Descent, because in my opinion, it's about pale crawlers. It takes place in an undiscovered North Carolina cave. We've seen that movie, and that's exactly what Wolf's talking about.
Yeah, it was a good scary movie.
Not the movie, but the concept, yeah.
I think that was filmed in Scotland, though. I don't know. But it was definitely terrifying.
I've seen it, I think, but I don't, Here's a story now I'm going to tell you about Bigfoot, and this is, it's weird. It is a weird story, but I thought it was interesting. And I thought maybe I should save it for the podcast and we could do, something about it. But we had just done one called Cryptid Wars. Here is what I was told, and I thought this one would be, we need to cut this into a short. That's what we need to do. Okay, because I'm going to start telling you this story. First time I've ever heard of Bigfoot fighting with a goat man. First time anybody's ever told me anything like this. And it's really weird because it involves, it's not just as simple as like two beasts out in the field fighting. It was really bizarre. Now it started off, and I'm not gonna give you, because there's more to this. There's a whole story behind this. But these people were living, and oddly enough, it's a very weird area where people have a lot of weird stuff that happens. And this particular story happened up in upstate New York. And when you look at that area, like on a map from what we get from stories, it's like we had gotten some weird stories out of that area. It's like Jenna Perry's story, or the Adirondacks. But this is a little further afield from where she's from, further to the east, I guess. And I think further south. But it was Goatman. The first thing that happened, guy's name is, well, I'll call him Hank. He went outside to take out the trash. He was talking to his teenage son. His son had just got, it was right after Christmas. It was the week, that week after Christmas where it's like nothing happens. And you're just kind of like, you're waiting for New Year's Eve. And you're like, when do we drink? I guess we should probably wait. Should we just enjoy our gifts until then? Or if you get gifts, I don't know, but whatever. And it was so bizarre. Like he said, dude, I go out there and I see this thing. And he goes, we had a few cattle. Not they didn't have a ranch so per se, but he had 20 head of cattle, and at any given time, and then they would take them, and then sell them, whatever. And they're restless; they're moving around, and so he's sitting there and he's like looking to see if something is going on. His son for Christmas, this was 2 or 3 days after Christmas, had gotten a set of night vision goggles. So they decided to check them out. He said, Dad, you're not going to believe this. Take a look at this. And he says, he looks. He says, I see this bipedal, weird-looking creature with horns on its head. Okay. He starts going into but I said, hold on, Hank. Back it up. I said, just to be sure, I was like, are you sure that this wasn't one of your bulls standing on its hind legs, maybe trying to introduce himself to one of your cows? I mean, you have to, you have to ask those. He says, no, absolutely not. The cows were scared. They were on one side, and this creature was moving around. And he goes, I ran inside, and I grabbed a 308, and I was ready to pop caps. Okay, that's not his words, mine. He said some stuff. And he said, I'm going to kill this thing. Obviously he had a calf that was disappeared, and he thought this is probably what did it. Didn't find any blood or anything. It just disappeared. His wife and her best friend and his wife's best friend's younger sister, they took her out after her college graduation. They took her out to have a few drinks, and they were coming home, and they saw a blue ball of light, a bluish green ball of light, go right in front of their car, and then go up into the sky and kind of like do a loop, and then it just vanished right there over a field. And she was like, "What the heck did we just see?" Fast forward, this was a few days before Christmas, right? It was like a week before. I think the week before Christmas week or whatever. It was whenever you graduate from college. I don't know, what is that, December or whatever? Yeah. And so she, and she's like, we were freaking out. And the younger sister, she starts screaming, okay? His wife, Stacy, or his wife's sister, Stacy's in a panic. And she's so freaked out, she can't contain herself. She gets out of the car and she runs inside and literally starts kicking the door without even using the door handle. That's how hysterical she was. And the other two girls were just like, you need to calm down. She's like, no, you don't know what this means. I don't know. This is crazy, whatever. Well, that's why I said there's more to it, and we will get into that eventually on an episode, right? There's a lot that goes on here. But sticking to this part of the story, he says, dude, that was weird enough. He's like, then I get this weird goat-looking thing. First time he used that term to me. He said horned creature, and I'm thinking, please be a minotaur. Please be a minotaur. Only because I don't really get many minotaur stories. So I was like, I would love to hear about a minotaur. And he says, Goatman. I said, oh, well, that's a good story too, Goatman. Sorry that he's going through that. I'm not happy that he's going through that. Don't get me wrong. But I just want to know so much more about it. Valerie Guy says the movie The Descent was filmed in the UK, but the setting was placed in North Carolina. A lot of weird stuff happens in North Carolina, and in the UK. But, what's really crazy about this story, and I asked him, I said, what color was it? He said it was just brown. That's all I could tell. It looked the same dark shade as the cattle. It didn't look, Next day he goes out there and he looks and he finds hoof prints, but he can't really differentiate between, they could be cows. He doesn't know. He just and then his son said, no, look, over here, these footprints look a little different. And he said there were just kind of indentions on the ground. The ground was kind of hard. It had been really cold. And so he wasn't able to ascertain, hey, this is 100%. Pictures just look like indentions in the ground. There's nothing you could really get out of that. And Kooky Spooky, thank you for ordering the book. Be sure and get the Bigfoot book too. It's going to give you a lot of insight. So we got both of them for sale now. But what ended up happening 2 years prior to that, they had seen what they thought was two Sasquatch-looking creatures walk through their pasture. And it was at dusk, and it was in the middle of the summer. And they were all sitting outside on the back porch, and they were like, what in the heck is that? Nothing came of it. There was nothing wacky happened, nothing whatever. But then his mother-in-law was driving to their house, and she sees standing, well, first it was squatted down, but then it stood up, a full-on Squatch just standing there like in a ditch. And so whenever she got to the house, she was hysterical, and that was like the year, that winter after that, it was like late fall. And she said it was crazy. Well, you fast forward to this year when that would be that woman's daughter, her best friend. Their daughters grew up with her daughter, so they were like best friends. So this young lady has an encounter with this orb, or these young ladies have an encounter with an orb, and it's green, bluish green. And then the next night, after seeing the Goatman-looking creature, they see two orbs. This is really interesting. One was like a silvery color and like whitish silver, and the other one was bluish green, and they were kind of zigzagging around each other. They watched it for a few minutes, and then they ran inside to grab something so they could record it, and then they come back out, and it's gone. Hank says, dude, there's nothing I could do. It had disappeared. But one of the things he said, dude, it didn't take long. About 3 a.m, this is the number. He says, I hear this ungodly, just spitting, snarling, fighting, don't know what to call it. It was like just a war going on outside. I go out there, and I hear this whooping, hooping, hollering, and I see about 50 yards into my pasture, which is where the fence is, where he is not far from where their drive is, and there's like a carport. And he said, I see about 50 yards into the fence. My cows are nowhere to be found. Okay. And he said, dude, there is these two creatures, and they are literally standing there. You could see them, like they were huffing and puffing and breathing. You could see the breath, And he's like, they were full on killing each other, fighting. And then at one point he said that one of them looked gorilla mixed with like a human, which he said point blank he thought was a Bigfoot type creature that was described before when when him and several of his family members saw a Bigfoot walk across the property right after or during a July 4th weekend or week, whatever it was. And then he said, then I see, the mother-in-law gives the description of this, basically a Bigfoot, had red eyes, and it was brownish black fur. And he said, I see both of their eyes. The goat-looking creature had red eyes. The Bigfoot creature had red eyes. They both look demonic, evil, whatever, but they are full-on fighting, and eventually they kind of got locked up, and they were rolling, and it appeared at one point the goat looking creature had very big, broad shoulders with huge muscles. And he said it had like dug its claw into the side of this Squatch looking creature. And the Squatch creature had its hand up on its head, trying to push its head back. And both of them had very big teeth. The goat, of course, man, had a long muzzle with sharp canines, almost like a wolf's mouth, but it definitely had horns, and it was built like a goat, had backward big legs with the hooves. The Bigfoot creature was losing at this point, and it began to hoop and holler, and he said something in me just felt, I don't know. He's like, I felt compelled to do something. He said, I didn't want to choose sides because they both looked scary and evil, and I wouldn't want either one of these things around my property. So he had a rifle, and he leveled it, and he didn't want to take a shot at either one of these creatures and get their attention. So he shot in the direction of these creatures, and it sort of stopped for a minute. They both kind of looked over, noticing him. And then when they noticed him, they both kind of like, there was like this real quick separation, and then they were on their feet, and they just kind of began to walk off in different directions. And I asked him, I said, did you take another shot? And he said, no. I said, why not? Why didn't you kill these demonic creatures and put their skin on? I'm just kidding. Hang their skin on your wall, and then you have something to talk about when people come over.
The worst thing that could have happened is that they realized they got shot at. They put their fight on hold just to go after him. Yeah.
The thought crossed his mind, and the thought crossed my mind, and I was thinking, this is probably not something that he should have done. CJC Dova says I would have shot the goat man. His reaction was to shoot the goat man creature, but if you get the information that we got later on, the Bigfoot creatures were no better than the goat man creatures. Eventually, and that's the end of that story that I'm going to tell for now. There's a lot more to it. There's more because I'm going to come back to that one. Don't let me forget it. Just remember Goatman, Bigfoot fight upstate New York. There's more to it. I'll come back to it eventually. And there was another story that I got. Now this one, I don't know if anybody knows where Sri Lanka is. It's a long ways from upstate New York. Sri Lanka is an island located just off the coast of India in the south.
South Asia.
Yeah. And so a Sri Lankan who's a friend of mine I actually went to school with, he saw my show, he found me through a mutual friend of ours, my friend Greg, and he says, hey, and I've known him for a long time, and so he says, his name is Mdika, and Mdika says, hey, I got a story for you. I see that you do this stuff, whatever. A couple of our mutual friends actually told them, he said, I got a story for you. It's really crazy. And he says, dude, there was a farmer there who was being plagued by, the only way he could describe these creatures was some sort of like Bigfoot that comes out of the water. Like water ape-like creatures is the only way he could describe them. They would come out of the water and they looked like Bigfoot, but then they would go back but they had webbed hands and feet. Somebody who was abducted by one of these things actually told his dad that they had spent time with these creatures near a cove, like a cave, and that they had webbed hands and feet, and that when they opened their arms, they had like webbing and like so it helped them swim, and their hair was more akin to like an otter's, and they looked very oily. Max Brandt water apes, yes. So these things would be in the water, and they would come out, and they would do what they do. But he said one day, these creatures that would terrorize this particular village that his dad lived in. It was his dad's grandfather, who he didn't know. His dad passed away, and they had migrated years ago. He said, I had this weird encounter with one when I was a kid. I was walking through the woods going to this path, going from my friend's house to mine on the outskirts of our town. And he goes, and one of them just steps in front of me, like, and he just kind of sits there looking at me. And then there's a snap. And get this. And the thing turns and looks. And whatever that was caught its attention. Then it just kind of went like it roared, made a crazy sound, like a gurgling sound, and then went off into the woods toward whatever that was. So I told him, I said, did you get a look at what it was? He goes, no, it was really fast. It was brown and it was gone. And then it seemed like it was more concerned with dealing with whatever that was. So I asked him, I said, let me ask you this question. Did you ever figure out what it was that this creature was? He's like, I think I did. He said, one day, Kate Hunter, thank you for that donation. Kate, we really appreciate that donation, Kate Hunter. He said, one day, I asked my brother, and I know his brother too. His brother didn't have any experiences like that. But he knew that his brother had seen one. He says, do you believe in these things? He says, yeah, I hear something around the house sometimes, like something's bumping up against it. They had a dog that would just go crazy. And they would just kind of huddle in their house, and when this thing would be knocking around. And he said it was probably one of these water creatures. And now, unfortunately for you, he gave me the name of what they call them, the Sri Lankan name. And I cannot pronounce it. And I'm not going to try. He said these other creatures showed up. Just showed up. There was a really bad storm that hit their island years ago. And he said after that, something happened, and those Bigfoot type creatures, you didn't see them very often. And then all of a sudden they came back. People started seeing them again. They were stealing fish from the boats. They were doing all this shenanigans, whatever. And they, maybe because of the storm that hit the island and devastated it, that these things became more aggressive. They needed food. He said that there was always legends in the middle of the island. It's not just it's a huge place, not just like an island. But it is an island, technically, by the technical term. It's surrounded on all sides by water. And he said there was a civil war that's been going on forever, because there's the Tamil that live there, and they don't all get along. And he said that there was a spot in the middle of this island where there was legends that there were creatures that would come up out of this holes that were there. And he said that, but it was far enough away from his village that they really didn't deal with that. All they dealt with were these swimming Bigfoot, is what I call them. And he said that these things were getting more and more and more aggressive and causing more and more problems. And they didn't just bump around the house. They were beginning to try to break into people's houses. People were shooting at them. In fact, they killed one, and it was on the shore, and these other creatures came and grabbed it and chased some people from the beach. He said there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. So I'm reading some of the comments here. But anyway, one of the things that ended up happening, he says after the storm, when these things started getting really, really bad out of hand, he said these weird looking, and this is how he first started talking to me and him. He said these weird wolf-headed creatures showed up. And he's like, and then after I heard the stories about them, I thought, you know what? Maybe in the early 2000s when I saw that thing to my right, that's what that was. You know, I'm sorry, early 90s. That's when it happened. But he said the early 2000s was when all this was going down. And then there was a big storm, you know, and then all this stuff happened. I think it was like mid-2000s. And he said, dude, it was crazy because after this big tsunami or whatever that hit, you know, these dog-headed, weird-looking wolf-like creatures started showing up And he said, dude, once those things showed up, the reports of these swimming Bigfoot disappeared from his area. And I asked him, I said, so did these things, these dog-headed, wolf-headed creatures, did they do anything? I mean, he says, no, not really. He said, we lost some livestock and people were missing pets and a couple people disappeared. He said, but it was business as usual. It was no different than these creatures from, in the water. And so when you go back and you...
This is change overlord, basically.
Yeah. One creature just kind of supplanted the other creature. One of the things that he said, and this is like if you look up water spirits or whatever, the undine, some of them appear like they're these hairy looking Bigfoot type creatures. And I thought, dude, what are we really dealing with here? Those things are coming out of the water, but do they have gills? Are they mammals? Like, what are they?
I was going to ask this because
I don't know.
It leads to a interesting idea of if these creatures are, Bigfoot and Dogman are creatures that are kind of just making their own body from a spiritual place, from the outside. Why wouldn't you be able to just add stuff once you want to? So, like, yeah, if like a giant tsunami hits and you're like, oh, I don't want that to happen again. Oh, I know. I'll just add some webs and stuff on my hands and just make it so where I breathe, I can, get oxygen from water. And just be like, well, I'll
So
just
you think that they created a body?
It could just be like they created something where it's just hyper adaptive. Because you also have the abominable snowmen.
Well,
or yetis,
Yeti. Okay, but what if this thing, though, and hear me out on this one, what if this thing comes from, like the inner earth, too?
Mm-hmm.
But they have a spot that they can come in and out of, like water passage that goes in and out of the inner earth where they live. And they can hold their breath for a really long time. I was watching on Joe Rogan's show the other day. Somebody was talking about a woman. She could hold her breath for 5.5 minutes. I mean, when you think about that, that's not that long, I mean, compared to some of these creatures.
But they have a higher, with increased size means increased organ density, so that our organ size, so they probably their air capacity, it's something we probably can't fathom.
Well, what was the story we were talking about where these things would go into the water and they would be under the water for a long time and they wouldn't see them resurface? Which one was that? Because we got that one. We told that one on the show. I remember. That wasn't yesterday, was it?
No, that wasn't yesterday. What was that?
Sue Gee says the Kushtikai. Yeah, me and David Weatherly talked about that on my show when we talked about the one from Alaska. Funny enough, he kind of references that show, that episode at the beginning of my Dogman book, because Weatherly wrote the foreword for that, and we both kind of had a laugh about it. Redfern wrote the foreword for the Bigfoot book. This, I've thought about this too, and I, how could this creature adapt to the water? Now we're going to have a guest on Friday. He's coming to he might come to the studio. I don't know, regardless. But it is a question. We need to write this down. You need to mark it down, because that's a question to ask him about this. Ask him about, here, put it on this pad right here. Be sure and just say, hey, what do you think about this water ape, this scenario? We'll talk to him. We'll see if we can get some answers from him. Here's the thing. Whenever these creatures, these dog-headed creatures appeared, the other creatures just quit. They didn't come into their area anymore, but they did actually appear to some friends that lived, like 40, 50 miles on the other side of this place, and they lived near the water too. And they were still showing up to them, but they weren't showing up to my particular friends in their area. They didn't see him again. And then, of course, his parents stayed living there, and then he moved to the United States. And originally went to San Diego and got a job, and then came to Texas. And I've known this guy for years. He's been a friend of mine. Like I said, we went to school together for a little while. And it's just a weird story, you know. But he was telling me, he's like, there was these creatures, and you can go back and forth about what they are. And what's interesting though is how these Bigfoot creatures interact with the other cryptids, like the Goatman. I don't think we've ever heard of a Goatman fighting a Bigfoot, have we?
No, I
I
was
think
gonna
this is the
say.
first time.
Yeah, that was definitely the first. It's funny though that people were saying like, "Oh, I'd shoot the goat man," or I just wouldn't get in between it. I wouldn't
don't
want
think
to
I would
incur
even,
either of their angers.
especially if you knew the rest of the story, because none of them are good guys. You're not dealing with like good and bad. You're not dealing with, you know, like
Yeah.
it's not everything is as cut and dry as
Yeah, I wouldn't want
know,
to be
some-
even noticed at all.
What is that saying? If I have to choose between the lesser of two evils, I'd rather just not choose.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's Cooper Young says, but I hate Goatman in particular. Is there a reason, Cooper? Because if you have a story, give it to me. I'd love to hear it.
Probably because it looks more demonic.
Well, yeah, because a lot of times you hear about these things and you're like, they're summoning what looks like a goat man. And in fact, the story out of Kerrville, now we had that guy that used to be in the chat. I don't know where he's at now, Last Starfighter from East LA, whatever, who says his uncle was a werewolf. And then somebody saw that and they elaborated and said that they actually saw a man change into a werewolf-looking creature in their garage. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
And but then a friend of my brother's, who back when my brother was a Satanist before he converted and became a Christian, had said that one of his friends had done a ceremony out there, and then I talked to this guy and I interviewed him, and he moved to like Finland or something, but he claimed to have done a ceremony and invoked a spirit that came out of the woods that was a goat-like creature. You know, and then you got Burt Wall talking about it in his book, and then the guy at the bar saying, well, he was really talking about a goat man, not a goat, because he says a goat. Now, how would a goat be killing people's livestock? And then they catch this goat in the cave, but he didn't want to say goat man because he's writing a book about ghosts, and he thought it might be too...
Yeah.
You know, God rest his soul, Burt Wall. But, the truth is, it was a goat man, you know. Yeah, Gil, we know why you hate it. Gil, you got to get on the show, and we got to talk about what you saw. I mean, that's a pretty... Gil's giving me a story that's pretty, I can say this, there are a lot of weird things in this world. There's secrets in this weird world that we may never get the answers to. If you listen to the show from last night, though, in case you missed it, what that guy went through in that house, it wasn't just a haunting. There was, going through these blurry portal doorways. You call them portals, but I didn't really call them portals. I don't know what they are. And like the reality would change, and he would see like different wallpapering. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Things changing color. Furniture that wasn't there is now there. It wasn't there before. It wasn't in furniture. Now it's furniture. The library with the books, and now thank God we have a very intelligent audience. Because, and I hope I can say his name. I don't want to get anybody, put anybody on the spot here. I don't want anybody to know that you listen to my show. So I'll say his first name. His first name is Vincent.
Oh, I know him.
Vincent sent me this. Probably shouldn't even. Probably don't even want to post that. If you go and look up Masonic Tubal-Cain, go look it up. Okay, just take a look at that. When I took a look at that, I sent it back to Lee, the guy who went through what he went through in the stories from last night, and Lee said that is very much how. So you were right, Vincent. If you're listening, give yourself a gold star. He said that looks very much like how the lettering was on the books in the library. And I'll show you, Anthony. I don't want to, just like I said, y'all could look this up. It's just, take a look at that.
It's very distinct.
Masonic tubal cane, bicolor hippo 89.
What I find interesting, is that color change.
Did you see it?
Yeah, that color change thing. I wonder if if there are different, if he was experiencing like parallel realities, if it could be something as simple as the light affecting his eyes differently in that world.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Because it kind of just hit me right now when you said that.
Yeah, I never thought about that. You know why? Because that's stupid. Anyway, we're gonna go on with. I'm not kidding.
Surprise.
I'm only serious. No, you know what it is. You're right, because like maybe the fractals. You know what I mean? Like you see like these weird patterns and these weird. What do you think? I mean, could it have been like the color was because there is something you just said. He had a roommate, and we called him Randy. It's not his real name, but Randy, his roommate, had said that when he was living in one part of the house, he had said that it seemed like the color in some of these where it changed, it was almost like a color he had never seen before, and he couldn't describe it to me.
Yeah.
Well, an alternate reality could have like a different light spectrum than ours.
Well, I mean, it could just be as simple as people mistake the sun for being yellow when it's actually just a white star, and it could just be something like, oh, it could be like a red star, or it could be a different star, and because of that, the light that hits through when it brings into our eyes, we're just like, oh, that looks like something I've never seen before, but it could just be something very natural.
Samuel
to
had a
other
good
people.
comment there.
Like,
What
it could be
is
like
Mine is
Mapumbe.
different because you are operating in more capacities than just human. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that could have been going on with that. I mean, it's whatever. But moving on now, we're going to go to another story here, and so I don't know what my friend, from Sri Lanka, I don't know what he saw. He couldn't tell me. But if I had to put my finger on it, I would say what he saw in that path, besides that webbed fingered hand Sasquatch creature, maybe it was a Dogman. And that was the precursor to them, or maybe territorial. They heard loud screeching and howling and whooping and hooping and hollering and trees cracking and breaking, leading up to the water ape creatures sort of just taking a powder and being gone.
Did you hear any stories of Dogman before the
He didn't
flood or
he
tsunami?
knew that in the middle of the country there were stories.
So I was thinking like it might have been that they just went underground for a while during that water thing or the flood that happened, while the Bigfoot were more like, oh, we'll just go into the water. But then after a few years, they came back out, and these Bigfoot obviously adapted in a way where they didn't find it necessary probably to fight, because we're like, we can just go around. You're stuck here.
Well, the inner earth has creatures that dwell there that run the gamut between from human-like to giant human-like to reptilian, human-sized reptilians to giant reptilians, and there's everything in between. And then there's these very primitive species that live there, and then there's these very it's deep. The earth is very deep. It goes miles and miles down. And then there's civilizations that exist down there. The book The Smoky God, for example. I mean, if you read that, or Etta Dorpa, or any of these other books, that I've read that talk about this, it's, I mean, if it's to be believed, I mean, and I talk a little bit about it in the books. There are very primitive civilizations, and then there are very advanced civilizations. And obviously, they're not all going to be together or have anything to do with one another, because if you're living down there, and you're not going to want to be around a hive of crawlers.
Especially
know?
if the, you know,
You're going to have your own stuff and it'd be like, I'm not going over there. That's where, just think about it like this. Where we live now, folks, follow me on this. Don't bail out on me, okay? Check it out. Think about this. You live in the island of Sri Lanka, right? That's like my friend. And let's say that you're living in an area where your civilization is. Well, there's these other creatures that live on another part of that country. You don't want to go over there and be around them. That's not you. They're whatever they are, and they're more primitive and they're beastly, and it's going to be the same way in the inner earth. You know, it's like, and this is the story I'm going to get into, and this is what leads into this. See, this is what makes me kidding, folks.
award-winning
I'm an award-winning podcaster.
author as well.
I can start a story from the end and go all the way to the beginning and wrap it all up. That's what we do. That's why I was given this by my co-host. Award-winning, folks. Award-winning. We're award-winning. We win big. You understand? We win big. You're not an American. If you don't vote for me, you're not an American. I'm the award-winning guy. Podcast. Next time there's a contest, you vote for me. You want to be an American? Huh? Vote for me. So here's what I'm going to tell you. The inner earth is going to be the same way as it is on the top side. You're going to have civilizations that are going to have, you know, built big, huge, whatever, countries, whatever. But there's more of it. Okay. And then you're going to have the lesser species of whatever that are going to be roaming around, just like we have here.
Everything's gonna have its territory.
It's going to have its territory. On this particular story that I got, and this is something that this person, she claims that she was abducted. But these weren't extraterrestrials. They didn't take her up in a spacecraft. They didn't take her out into outer space, and she wasn't in any kind of facility that we would know of. She was taken and she was abducted, and she was taken into the inner earth. She's from China. She's been living here for like 27 years, but I met this person through a listener of mine who is an American. She was born and raised here. You know, she's how do you say it? An Americanized. Her mother's not, so she had to kind of talk for her mother. Her mother lived in the Manchurian province. She was taken by these greenish brown creatures who, once again, they got these orbs. You know, these orbs. They took her she was put into what seemed like an altered state of being where she felt really calm and relaxed, and she was just floating, and she thought she was asleep. She was out of her body. She, I believe, was taken in an orb. Okay? This is what I believe. I'm not saying that she didn't say that this is what happened. This is what I believe. Okay? And then she ended up going into a hole within the earth. Like I said, she thought she was dreaming. She thought she was asleep. She wakes up and she's surrounded by plants that she's never seen before. There's like a whole world down there. There's a sun that looked kind of dim, like a dim sun. Not dim sum.
I was just thinking that.
Dim sum. Dim sum. Dark suns down there. No, anyway, she had this sun that looked, you know,
Kind of stupid.
well, she had and she had no concept of the smoky god, any of that stuff. She hadn't read any of these books. She was, let's put it this way, she's a very nice person. She's a hardworking person, but she's uneducated. She's not very educated. And her daughter says, look, my mother's got an amazing story to tell. You know, she's like 70 years old, but she's got her faculties about her, 76 years old. She's got her faculties about her. She does. And she translated for me because her Chinese was not real good. But this is what was weird about it. This abduction didn't just happen one time. It happened 3 times. And it started when she was, I think she was 13 until she was 17. But it happened 3 times between those years until she moved. And what's weird is when she went into the inner earth, where she was at in Manchuria, right? And if you don't know where that's at, it's in the north. You know, it's whatever. Look it up. And then she eventually moved to a big city. She said it was like unlike anything she'd ever seen. When she realized where she was sitting, she stood up and she's sitting on something that looked like a giant mushroom, a brownish colored mushroom. The grass was an off green, and the colors were colors that she had never seen before. And she thinks, like what you were saying, that the lighting actually made this world, you know. And she said that it was like the colors were, even though it was kind of dim, the colors of everything were bright. It was brighter. It was different than anything she'd ever seen. There was this butterfly type creature that went by her that wasn't really a butterfly. And it had like a human-like head on it, and it just kind of was looking at her, and like she was like, "Am I tripping?" You know, I'm like, "Did I eat something bad?" And she's like, "This is just a dream." The beings that she was with made it very clear, "No, you're not dreaming." And they took her into a room that was very organic looking. I say organic because it was like, the way her daughter described it was like, okay, this is going to sound weird, but you know how the Lord of the Rings, they have the little hobbit house?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The doorway was like rounded. And when she went in, the ground was like, it was kind of naturally built out of like wood, but it just, and she walked and she had to watch how she walked because it was very unstable.
Like the hobbit holes made
Well, these
into the
little,
earth.
yeah, and these little skinny, diminutive creatures took her into that world, and they put her to sleep. And they tried to give her food. She rejected it multiple times, thank God, because that's something that you don't do. If you ever find yourself there, DJ Tyler Rado says the Mushroom Kingdom. Yeah. But she was abducted. And not by, you know, whatever. Well, after the third abduction, she had spent 2 or 3 days there at a time. But when she would come back, it was more like she had not been gone. Like no time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
The longest she stayed was about a month. The second time, I believe it was the second time. That time went by so quickly. She's like, you know, like in her, like as opposed, their time was like slower. You know what I mean? Like their
Yeah.
time, but it was very, like for us, it was very fast. It was like she went back up top. She was missing for a couple of hours. So it was a different type of abduction. But one of the things she learned, at least from this that happened, her daughter said, my mom is very convinced that these beings are able to manipulate space and time when it comes to our minds. And when she refused by the third time to accept any food or drink or anything, she got really ill the second time because she wouldn't accept anything to eat or drink, no matter how hungry or thirsty she got. And they thought, well, she's going to die. And they had this conversation. She could hear them talking. So they took her back. But they wanted something from her. And so a series of blood transfusion, blood was taken out of her body, and this green fluid was put into her body. Very weird. After that, we're talking about the colors. When she came up top, she believed that she could see in all directions. When she focused, she could see, like, not through her physical eyes, but her mind's eyes. She could see in all directions, and she had dreams that would come true. She could heal people, you know, and she only used it for like people like family members, whatever. And she had the ability to, sometimes she could see people's thoughts. Now, that's going to sound weird. And she could also see a full different spectrum of colors. Being able to see people's thoughts is not the same as being able to hear it. Like you have a thought, she could see it in her mind's eye, what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't all the time, you know. Sometimes it was by accident, but usually she had to focus. And there were people that found out about her, not her story, because she didn't really talk about the story. She was terrified to talk about it. But she had people that would come and she would tell them, You know, that like they wanted help. You know, that okay, I was born with the gift to heal. She really wasn't. It was something that was given to her as a teenager. And I thought it was intriguing whenever I was listening to this person tell me this, you know, and I met this person through my show, and, you know, finally somebody contributes something from the show. I'm kidding, folks. I love you all. I'm joking. But she gives me this story. She says, my mother doesn't watch the show. She doesn't know, she can't read it or understand it or whatever, or she doesn't read the chat. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't speak real good English. But it was so bizarre when she was telling me. And now, when you think of being abducted, you think of like aliens from extraterrestrials, but these would be inner Earth, you know, terrestrials. Like, I don't know. I mean, what would you call that? What would you classify that? I have no idea.
That's a tough one because, you know, they aren't really aliens if they're coming from the inner Earth.
Mm-mm. The beings themselves were very like, they were just nondescript, little skinny. They were about 2 foot tall, and they were very thin bodies, and their heads were kind of elongated. That was the difference. They didn't have hair. Now, what these beings were and what their purpose was, we don't really know. There is more to the story, and I don't know. Yeah, Bernard, I agree with you too. And yes, Gregory. There's more to the story. There has to be. I mean, you know, and I think that what she was dealing with and what she dealt with was something that was trying to kind of like bargain with her or reason with her or get her to agree. Because I do believe that on some sort of level, like some sort of subconscious level, soul-wise, you have to kind of agree to this. Now, I know a lot of abductees will be like, no way, that's, you know, that I got abducted and I didn't agree to this crap. But when you go to sleep, you come out of your body. How do you know what you're doing or what you're saying or what kind of agreements you're entering into, or who knows what's happening when you're asleep? She thought she was in a dream, you know? She thought that this wasn't real. This was like, until she woke up and realized, like, this is, okay. Not woke up, but like woke up to the reality, like, I am awake. I'm just tired. And this is a waking dream, whatever. She didn't feel threatened by these creatures, but she did definitely feel like she was held captive there. She wasn't allowed to walk around much past the little, you know, cave home that she was in. She could go out into this little open area, and these people were coming and going out of little doorways, and she was not allowed to go through those doorways when she walked to them. And one of her captors, I should say, told her, you cannot go through these doorways because if you do, you won't find your way back. You will end up somewhere where you don't want to be. These doorways go to different places, and beyond what they told her, beyond our kingdom, our area, there are very violent and very dangerous and very unstable beings that will kill and eat you. Now, I told her daughter, I said, do you think that maybe, I said, ask your mother. I was like, do you think maybe these beings were telling her that to keep her there and be afraid so that she could stay as a prisoner? Or do you think that this is actually what was, I mean, was this true? You know?
Right.
This is what she told me. She said that at one point, maybe to prove this to her, and this is going to sound crazy, they brought to her what she described as a 7 to 8 foot tall, and going by the centimeters, that's what they go by in China. She says they brought a very tall creature to her, and this creature spoke to her, and it completely looked like a Sasquatch, like a Bigfoot, like exactly like you would hear like a northwestern, humongous, tall Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever. And this thing spoke to her. At first, it didn't. they gave her some sort of weird, like, mushy bread looking thing, and she gave it to this creature, and the creature took it, and then it began to speak to her. And what it told her was that, yes, we are neighbors. We are neighbors with these beings. But his people, his whatever, there were countless different versions of them roaming our earth, above and below. He didn't even specify. He didn't say on the inner earth or on the surface. He just said above and below. We're not all together. We're not all friends, and we don't all get along. He's like, my village and where I live, we're peaceful. We trade with other beings. We're not all buddies. And that there are some that will literally eat you. Told her that. And so maybe to prove a point to her, they brought this being to tell her that. Right? Now, another thing that she learned is that they didn't need energy in the way that we need energy. There was a light that they could create that could literally hover in the air. They could literally produce light from the air. And there were these little creatures that kind of floated around, which to me would be sylphs. And they produced light too. And they would zoom in and out of these light balls, and they would make it more illuminated. Sort of a symbiotic relationship with different beings. And these lights that were created, she could literally read by them. They gave her books in English that they had, which was, Chinese that she had. And she saw books, like on a bookshelf, that she knows were written in English.
Mm-hmm.
Some that were written in Spanish. And I thought it was odd. And so I asked her, I told her daughter, I said, let me ask you a question. I was like, does she think that these books were taken from the top side? Or were these people that were taken?
Oh, wow.
And they took them. So she said, yeah, it was unnerving for her to see different types of objects that looked like they belonged to humans. So maybe there was something a little less benign going on than what she,
initially assumed.
Yeah. She wouldn't eat or drink anything. And I asked her why. She said it smelled terrible. That when she even put anything to her mouth, like to try to eat it or to try to drink it, she felt like she was going to throw up. She could not. And she did try. At one point, she did get so hungry and thirsty that she tried, and she just spewed it out. It was so disgusting. It was so bad. It was very acidic and bitter, and it burned her mouth, and she couldn't partake of what they were trying to give her, which makes me, that part right there makes me think that these things were probably not using some sort of magic, as you would think of, because they could deceive her by making it taste good.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have just been a natural being that lived down there. Now, another question I asked this, and I said, did you, when you talk to your mother, I said, do me a favor, ask her. We had two different conversations. It was, long. I said, ask your mom if she really believes that these were benign, or if she thinks they were evil. And did she happen to ask them if they knew anything about their origin? Because not we as a human race don't even know about our origin. We're like amnesia people over here. And so she did. And she asked them, where did they come from? And they said, from a star. That's very telling. They were left there so long ago that they don't even remember. They don't even know how they got there or where they got, whatever. Interestingly enough, when she was being led out and taken into this dreamlike state where she floats up out of this tube or whatever, she looked down and saw what she thought looked like a classic disc-shaped UFO type thing sticking up out of the ground, but it was only like a part of it, like half of a frisbee sticking up. And she thought, that's interesting. And she remembers saying that there was like this disc type thing or whatever. I mean, there's different ways to interpret that. Did these creatures abduct some aliens? Were they aliens at some point? Is that how they got into the inner earth? You know, like what's going on there? You know, there's so much to ask. And she answered the question that they were, for the most part, benign. She didn't think they meant her any real harm, although they did take her against her will, which to me is tantamount to kidnapping. I would not, you know. So I don't know if would that be considered alien abduction? I don't know what that is, but I'm going to ask that question when I do the UAP project with Christopher Jordan and Daniel Jones and possibly Chris James and Nick Redfern. We're going to have to ask some of these questions because the inner earth is where a lot of stuff is happening. The Bigfoot aspect of it was very interesting because when someone brings you, and now here's the thing, and here's what really aggravates me about this whole community, is that the daughter, went to a Bigfoot conference and tried to talk to several different researchers about this story, and they just threw it right out. Didn't want anything to do with it. Because it didn't involve a hunter seeing one of these walking through the woods. Simple as that. I even had someone, a supposed, thinks he's an authority on Bigfoot. She said, I posted this in a group, at least the part where my mother saw that. She said, my mother was once abducted, taken underground, and she saw a Bigfoot. The comment that was leveled at her underneath was like, oh, and I guess aliens were there dancing around and blah, blah, blah. They made fun of her in the Bigfoot group.
Mm-hmm.
Here you are in the United States, and now here comes the part that, you know, we're already in the deep water, okay? But here's the part that really just grabs my rib cage. Here is someone from another country, okay, trying to tell you a story that happened to her mother. This particular person works at well, I'm not even, I was going to say, almost say like what kind of job it was. She works at a very big company. She's got a degree. She's not an uneducated person. Her mother is uneducated, but she was an immigrant. These people, these authorities on Bigfoot, they don't want to hear anything other than these silly, dumb, just absolutely useless stories. I mean, they are useless. They don't want to hear it. It has to be Delbert was walking through the woods and saw one, and that was it.
It's like
Better not be anything else going on.
It's like they're using a cookie cutter, and they're literally just getting like a specific shape, ignoring all the other dough on the outside.
Because, and they are cultivating a lie, okay? They are cultivating, you're liars. You're a liar. That's what you do. You're lying. You're not an American, okay? China. You're not. The point is that these people have stories to tell. People from other countries. Okay? If you would stop trying to brainwash the American public for 1 second with your ridiculous shows of finding nothing, you might... Huh?
Nothing.
What?
Nothing.
You might, if you just open your beady little eyes and clean the nasty wax balls out of your disgusting ears, you might be able to come across something that can help add to solving some things, fixing some things, understanding the nature of our reality. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Her story is too unbelievable. But there's other people who've had very similar stories. But we don't talk about those. All we know is that Bigfoot is going, whoop, out in the woods, and then he's going like this. That's it. That's all we know. And then they interview a guy, and he's like, I was in my truck. I was driving. I looked over, and I saw it standing there. Hairy, tall, different. Wow. As dull and as boring and as absolutely useless as some sort of pain medication commercial. What are you getting out of that? Nothing.
A lot of people need to just question themselves more. I feel like they get to a result, based on whatever, and they just stick with it. But at the end of the day, like, you can't have a result on something that you don't know. So you should question everything that you're doing so that you make sure that you're not getting seated in your ego and sitting there like, just because I have come to this conclusion must mean that this conclusion is correct.
What do you guys think about this? I mean, this is a person, she's not an educated person. Her daughter is, but she's not an educated person. And her daughter, and then to a lesser degree, her son, who helped, they both kind of helped translate to me. I don't speak Mandarin, but what do you guys think? I mean,
Well, the part that kind of gets the gears turning in my mind is like that green liquid that they injected into her, and you said that after that, when she returned home,
she had extrasensory perception.
Yeah, like maybe that, and I don't know why they would do that to her or give her that ability, but maybe she was given the ability to a limited extent, like perceive the fourth dimension. Because I'm bringing that up because I just saw this example of like how to perceive or how to try and perceive the fourth dimension. Like you see this wireframe. You might be able to see it on the camera. Hang on.
The words are in the way.
Oh, okay.
Way to go, Anthony.
Well, hang on. Let me.
There it is.
All right. So if you look at this wireframe cube, like you can perceive it like facing towards you or facing away from you, right?
It flips.
Yeah, like it's just a matter of like what you tell yourself to see in your mind. So technically, you can see the front of it and you can see the back of it. So maybe that's what it's like to be able to perceive the fourth dimension.
I thought about this too.
Because she could see thoughts,
and she could also. She claims, and I thought maybe this might be, and hear me out. I think maybe it could have been like a language thing. All right, but she was saying she could see in all directions. Now, we've heard of people who've come out of their bodies. I know y'all have heard these stories where somebody says, I was floating above my body and I could see in all directions, right? That's really weird because it could be that she was able to see in all directions, but what she really meant was like she could perceive like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, if we go back to like the way light is perceived and stuff like that, we assume it's all in our eyes, but at that point, like, it could be like something where we feel it like light on our skin, and that's how we receive that information.
See things upside down.
Yeah.
And then our conical,
I mean, the brain flips it.
It flips it, yeah.
So it could just be something
so
like
weird.
that's what that means, is like whatever they did to her just allowed her to be able to feel the light on her skin, and that's how she perceives her surroundings and stuff like that.
I think it was an experiment. Just like I think they were trying to experiment with their technology.
And like the fact that she could see thoughts, maybe that's an indication that thought forms are actually a visible thing, but it's just that they're not on the visible spectrum of light that our eyes can perceive. So
and that could also explain why when we're thinking something and then the phone pops it up, it freaks us out because we think like, oh, how did they
think
know?
of like Terminator with the Skynet thing, right? and Skynet becomes like an avatar in that movie Genesis. Like it becomes like an avatar. It develops, and it's like I am Skynet. Like
Yeah.
it was like an individual
Became,
that was
conscious.
but it was like Skynet created Skynet.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Like
remember
it's
you
like a
talking
loop.
about it. It was a loop.
Yeah.
Now, there is another way, and I was talking to somebody the other day about this, and he's into quantum physics, and I'm not going to even compare what he does to me, because when it comes to history, I'll blow him away. When it comes to quantum physics, that's his domain. Y'all probably know him. He's a friend of your stepdad's, somebody we've all known for years. And he don't say his name because he works for a big company here.
Peter Parker.
But here's the thing. He was talking to me the other day, and we were having a conversation because he listened to a couple of my shows. He doesn't have a lot of time, but he listens to it sometimes. And he says, dude, you're on the right track, but let me explain something to you. And because I had a question for him. And I said, what if theoretically, if we have quantum computers and they are going back and forth and they're communicating. Thank you for that donation. Before I do this, let me thank DJ Tyler Radio.
I'll read this comment. while
Way
you're doing
back
it.
there. Ain't nobody donating. Y'all cheapskates.
Man, I love this podcast. Look forward to seeing you guys at the next conference.
I know money's tight. Everybody's got money problems, folks. I'm not asking for anything. If you can
DJ
help. If not, not.
DJ Tyler Radio, thank you for the $10 donation. Amazing show tonight, as always.
And thank you for contributing and helping out. But the thing is, folks, like if what this guy told me, and it was very interesting, and he agreed with my theory that we are communicating with through quantum physics. We know that they are communicating with alternate realities. And I said, now everybody says if you go back and if you were to be able to make a time machine, if you went back in time, you would not be on your timeline. You would go back to 1985 or whatever. You wouldn't be able to go forward, and because the time stream would change.
Yeah, just you existing
It would
there.
deviate. Yeah, it would deviate, and it would go off into different branches and all kinds of infinite realities, possible realities. Here's the thing: if somebody does that now through the ability of these quantum computers, they're communicating back and forth. They could literally create a bridge. Like, and this guy, he confirmed it for me. He said that is possible, and they're working on that to where you could go from that alternate reality that you went back into and you kind of created. You can cut off from that and go back to your reality.
Yeah.
And if you went back into your reality, to your exact timeline, then you could theoretically destroy it and unravel it by finding you or doing something to your grandparents or parents. He's like, that's already happening. And I'm going like, oh my, are you serious?
It could be something as simple as like,
They're creating like all these alternate realities and we're moving in and out of them all the time.
I mean,
Time is not a river now. It's like a giant ocean, and we're jumping, we're island hopping. We talked about it last night on the show too, about the Mandela effect and how I think the map is younger. I mean, I remember geography. It was one of my best subjects. I mean, folks, I'm not going to talk about my intelligence or whatever. I was in classes that were, and I did very well. And I'm going like, I have a mind like a steel trap. You're not going to trick me. I know what the heck I do or say. Everybody's always trying to play games with me. Like, my friends, and y'all have seen it for years, try to trip me up. It doesn't work. Very rarely do they get me. Every now and then I'll get confused, but it's not, the reason I'm saying that is because I know what I'm talking about. Okay, I see things a certain way. I know that if I come in here and I don't know what to call this guy. We can name him something here.
why don't we let them name them? The paratroopers.
Yeah, paratroopers, you can give this guy a name. But if I come in and he's got blue maracas and tomorrow I come in and they're green.
They're not purple to you?
You think I'm not going to notice that? Oh, today he's got red maracas. But how many people go through their day and they sleepwalk and they don't know?
They don't pay attention.
They don't pay attention. I had an electrical engineer, one day tell me he was working at a power plant and he told me point blank, he's like, dude, this is different. Something's not right here. I think the guy would know. He's an electrical engineer and he goes to that same place every day. And then one day things are different. He's like, I never believed in it. What my son and his friend were, or son and his girlfriend were telling me about this until I witnessed it. And you don't have to have a 162 IQ or to have photographic memory to know that this is what's happening. I know when I see something out of place, and I know geography, and I know damn well that this map is not correct. South America is not right up against Africa. That's 20 million years ago because they were one at one point, and then they came apart, and then they drifted, and the continental drift caused them to go like this.
Australia looks weird as well.
Now, Australia was called the land down under because it was down at the bottom. The Indian subcontinent was a subcontinent. Now it's this little, what is that? What is that? And then Australia is like right with Asia, which was like that at one time. It was literally, you could walk from Australia to China at one time. But that was millions of years ago. Not now. And so when you look at the map, you're going like, what's going on here? They've moved us into a reality where we're millions of years in the past. I know it sounds crazy, folks. I know it does. But I'm going to do an episode on dinosaurs. I have about Baker's, I counted a couple days ago, I counted on Friday. I have a baker's dozen dinosaur stories that people have given me, and that some of them that I collected, a few of them I collected, years ago down in South Texas when I was always hanging out down in the valley. But some of these were recent. Okay. Why do you think that is? Why are people seeing these and then they find a hole in the ground or they see an orb? You can't tell me that's a coincidence. You're not going to convince me that this is all just no, dude. As crazy as some of this stuff sounds, folks, I'm telling you that this is, you've got to pay attention. Don't let these people fool you.
It's an interesting thought I've had that kind of brings everything around full circle. You know how you said in the beginning, do you believe that science fiction stories are just really interconnected? And the thought I had was like, what if, especially since thoughts we've established, like they might be an actual thing that exists when you think something gets put out. Mm-hmm. What if stories aren't just stories? What if it's like another being, maybe something from the future, putting like history in your mind, or like putting something in your mind so that you think that, and then when you create it, it becomes like it slowly changes history in a way because you're introducing those ideas. Like what if like they can't come back? Like what if they can't physically come back and mess with stuff? So instead they implant ideas so that it would work the same way. So like you don't have to physically change anything. You can just give them the idea and let them do it themselves.
Exactly.
Never thought of it like that.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, Ona Holly, I'm still mad about the Bernstein Bears, for real. When I was a kid, I read those books every day. So did I. Yeah. Here's another one, too. Dave Howell, he says, what about the anatomical changes? Bingo. Your thumb is lower on your hand. You remember how we used to put the hand down and make the turkey, the sternum, the heart? It's not way over here to the left now anymore.
Yeah, it's like in the center.
You don't check the pulse right here. You check it over here.
I could swear like my collarbone kind of changed.
Your collarbones.
Like because like these two
bones in your legs?
These two bones right here, that they used to be like the same size, but now it's like this one right here on the right is like bulging out a little bit more than this one on the left. And then it went back to normal for a little while. And now it's like back to where this one's bulging out a little bit more. It's weird.
I always felt that they were a little bit lower. Like it feels too close to my neck.
Amazing Colonel Angus, do me a favor. If you have me on email or Facebook, and folks, if you want to become friends on Facebook really quickly, send me a friend request, but make sure you let me know that you are a fan of the show or a listener. And we can be friends. Also, I'm Josh Turner 940 on Instagram. Follow me, Josh Turner 940 on Instagram. I really got to read this. Colonel Angus, listen. He said, "Get the book Reality Transfer. Send me I will never remember that, okay? Because I will have to go through the comments because I have to commit it to memory. And right now, I'm trying to remember everything else. And so I can't commit that to memory right now. But please send me that. and I will look into that. I love to read about stuff like that. I also like David Icke, like Tales from the Time Loop. You've read that, right, Anthony?
Yeah.
Good book. You guys, I mean, seriously.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating one.
Federation System says, I think very highly of Josh, not as highly as he thinks of himself. But still, no, you know what it is, man? I'm just very insecure about myself, you know? These last two shows have been striking right at the heart of the matter. I'm very insecure about myself. I know that I'm not perfect, and I don't look as good as I once did. And I know that, golly gee, some people just, they just don't find me attractive. I don't give a crap, dude. Honestly, don't care. All right? I don't think highly of myself. I don't give a crap, dude. I go out in public, people are like, sir, you need to have pants on. I'm like, do I? Do I really? Is that the rule here at Target? Because I thought y'all were satanic.
Really,
now
officer?
You're just going to kick me out the game because I'm not wearing pants? Now all of a sudden you care? Now, huh?
Really, officer? Just because we're
weirdos.
at a playground, it's a problem now.
I'm at the McDonald's, you're over there at the
Play place.
play in the balls. Hey, what's going on? Sir, why are you wearing a Speedo in the McDonald's? I don't know. What's going on
Why aren't
here?
you?
Why are y'all doing the things you do? Why are you always finding human DNA in your food? Just true. What's going on? No, Federation systems. I try not to think too highly of myself. I don't like saying too much about what I can do or what I'm able to do, whatever, because people take it the wrong way. They always say, hey, "This guy's bragging. I'm sure I'll come up there, I'll do this, I'll poke his eyes out." And you're like, "Yeah, right, okay."
The difference between confidence and arrogance is the ability to understand your own capabilities.
Dave Howell. I'm sorry. What? Did you see what he said?
No.
Oh, stupid.
You don't call it the ball pit for nothing.
Orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. Okay, that sounds interesting. Any books that you guys have, or any kind of material, I just gobble it up. So if you have anything, you're not going to get it all just by watching Ancient Aliens. And I'm not going to bag on them. At least their show. I mean, some people say, well, they talk about it over and over and over again. I can go back and rewatch a rerun of them. That's how I judge a show. I can go back and Suckless can be up there talking, and I can go back and listen to him.
Yeah, and how well I absorb the information.
I can't do that with Finding Nothing over there. Those knuckleheads and that girl that.
Finding disappointment. I mean,
Stop pretending, lady. Like, what? Why is she even there? I don't believe this is happening. Just go, be gone from me. Okay, I just never, ever. I can't ever. It just, and then the other guy swinging his shirt around, threatening ghosts. So, dude, just
remember, guys, don't just come.
Jeez.
Send them to us so
Give
that
me
we can get them
anxiety.
on the outside. Because if we just go back and try to find these comments, it'll take us forever.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's just, we can't. There's thousands of comments on here. The Vril, the Coming Race. Yes, that's another. I've heard of this. The Vril. There's so much to it. There's so much we could talk about, so much we could do. 2-3 stories that I was going to talk about. I was actually going to talk about fire and water elemental spirits because I had a really crazy story off the coast of Thailand. Some friends of mine are kickboxers over there. One of them, he's crazy as hell. And I don't mean in a bad way. I just mean Anthony, you know the story. He showed up at our friend's hotel.
Oh yeah.
But he has a friend who's a former kickboxing champion, and his brother took a dive and saw something really, really crazy in the water. And I had a couple other water stories, and I thought we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about this fire elemental thing going on. I talked to a former firefighter from Detroit who saw a fire spirit on Devil's Night, they call it, and it was telling. It was really crazy. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about, a lot going on. We have a lot of stuff and locked and loaded, ready to go. Unfortunately, we can't get to every story every night. I hope you enjoyed tonight's stories. I need to get in touch with Whitley Strieber. Here's another thing about Whitley. He lives in San Antonio, and we have mutual friends. I haven't spoken to him. But I remember him passing away very clearly. you know, and people say, well, how can you have dual memories? Because sometimes you'll have memories. Like I have a memory of him when it was him talking about him being, you know, with Art Bell. And then I have a memory of Art Bell lamenting that he had passed away and he was going to miss his friend and all this stuff. And I remember the whole thing. And then I remember another version where it was Art talking about his wife. And so I thought, which one of these is correct? I don't know. Corley Cantor, yeah, read that book. That's crazy. So anyways, folks, people have asked me over and over again about a list of books that I think that they should read. And here's what I'm going to tell you. It depends on what subject you're trying to accomplish yourself in. It would be so hard for me to sit here and just create a comprehensive list. It would probably be 200-300 books.
I think one book, definitely, the Graveyard Book.
Oh, the Graveyard Book. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That's Neil Gaiman. But it's based on Rudyard Kipling's book, The Jungle Book. But it is good. It's a fictional book, but it is good. Go read that, the Graveyard Book. But if I had to create a list of books, and now what are you looking for? Are you looking for science? Are you looking for history? Philosophy, because these guys will tell you, I mean, how big is, like, my library is about half of what it was. How many books do you think we have in that house?
Couple, I can't really put a number
3,000?
on it.
Close to 3,000, especially with the new editions that we still have to sort. So it could be any number.
And I bought someone's collection not too long ago, and I've only gotten to read 2 or 3 of them out of there. But there's a lot. I would have to write a book about books. That would be extremely hard. And if I'm going to take up so much time to try to do that, it would just be so hard. Like I just mentioned, David Icke. I mean, he's got some really good work. You know, I mean, read up on certain scientists too. Like, I mean, I have favorite scientists like Michio Kaku. I think is great. You know, I was talking to somebody about him the other day, and they're like, "Oh, he sounds like Michio Kaku," and I'm like, "Okay." And I see how many brain
very
cells,
clever.
your 2 brain cells are fighting
To come up with that joke.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, as it is important what you do read, but I think the most important thing is that you just read. I think it's a very easy way to challenge your brain and make it to where, you know, you learn to focus, you learn to comprehend things better, and you just learn grammar, you know, simple thing like that. It does so much for you that you can't really replicate on a phone. Like, it's not the same.
Yeah, I don't like reading stuff, like trying to read a book on my phone. It's just
I mean, I can
something about
do it,
looking
but
at a screen for that long. It's just it just can't compare to reading the print book.
no, I mean, it definitely takes away a bit
Yeah, I
from
can't. And then I can't
your
do the digital
imagination.
thing, man. I don't. I just that's.
Yeah,
I have a tough time with the audio. That's
like audiobooks.
yeah. I just
Yeah,
can't.
because it's so easy to get distracted and do other
Mhm.
stuff. Like
Yeah.
you just got somebody just talking in the background, and you're like,
Mhm.
"Wait, what did he say?" Like I was
Keep
trying
rewinding
to,
it.
Mhm.
yeah, because I like Elmer Kelton. Like if I'm going to read fiction, I don't read a lot of fiction, but I like Elmer Kelton and some of the Louis L'Amour books, like Hondo and a few of the other like the Sackett's, you know. But if I'm going to go into, you know, somewhere like Lord of the Rings, a few of the Star Wars books until they destroyed it with the last 3 horrible movies that were just despicable.
Well,
Thanks a lot, Isney. I'm not going to say the full
years of work outside, and
I
they
just
just retconned
destroyed
it.
like nothing, like, you know. And then, of course, you have some really good books, you know, from those fiction. And then, you know, I do, if I'm going to read fiction, though, it's something like that typically. But I'm over there trying to listen, and I was listening to the Lonesome Dove series on audio, and I was doing something, and I just got completely, it was just like, forgot all about it. Next thing you know, they're like,
Chapter 2.
Chapter 7,
Yeah.
and you're like, what did I miss? I mean, I'm over here at McMurtry. You're losing me here because I'm. So it's not. you know, it's just so easy. Like you know, you said you don't like it. I don't like because it's
Well,
easy to just.
I
not-
heard of a way to try it that I might try that they say is a lot better because it allows you to just really take in the information better. Is that while you're reading the audiobook, just literally follow along with the real book, and it would be
Okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm not gonna.
But it was
I'm gonna do that. Yeah, if I'm gonna do that, I'm just gonna like read the book.
Well, they're saying that from what I read, it says it allows you to, maintain or sustain that knowledge.
And they
longer.
always say the book is better than the movie too. That's not always true.
It is quite a bit true, but it's not always.
Not always.
No.
I've read some books and then later watched the show, and then I thought I could have saved myself hours.
Hmm.
I could have had time to go and like do all. I could have worked out and
Sometimes just
ate dinner
simplifying
and
it.
watched another movie at the theater. What's the time? Dark Tower disappointed the crap out of me. I don't read much Stephen King. I'm not into horror fiction. In fact, I'll go out on a limb and I'll say I dislike the crap out of horror fiction. I really do. But I've read some Stephen King, and I liked what was it? The Night Flyer. I think I read that. Salem's Lot. Silver Bullet. You see where I'm going with this. I don't really read much of the others. But I read the Dark Tower series, and then the way he ends it.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Dude,
It's
I
horrible.
took a photocopy and put it on my heavy bag and just beat it for a week.
That's nothing actually. The worst is when I was already 7 books into this, and then on the 8th book he says, "Yeah, I'm lost. I have no more idea, so I'm just gonna end it here." And like the dude was just in the middle of his story and just decides to end it. Nothing's worse than that.
What book was that?
I can't remember. It was something I read in like middle school, just some library that I went through the whole thing, was fully invested, and the guy was just like on his middle of his journey going to the second kingdom or something.
Yeah. Somebody just quoted it. Amy Creel, we don't rent pigs. That's Augustus McCrae. I just saw somebody's comment because it said quantum potential on there. It caught my eye. It says, "Will you work out? How much you bench?" You really want to know that? You probably think I'm lying, and I'll you know what? Off the cuff, I could just what?
I remember it.
No, don't say anything. Let's just call somebody off the cuff. I think he should be. Maybe he's getting over to Marvia right now. I don't know.
Hello?
Hey, let me ask you a question. Just tell me. Somebody in the audience asked a question.
Yeah, I heard the question.
So how much do I bench?
Just about 600 pounds or more.
Oh no, you're
Because
completely.
I was gonna
saw you bench press and max, it was still at 585.
Yeah, I done 585 3 times. So Anthony, the last time. So you're not a good person to do with that. Get out of here, Squirt.
Yeah, way to help, Squirt. I was gonna say at least
Way to help me brag. Go ahead, Anthony. Tell him you were there.
7 or 8 pounds, right?
No, it wasn't that much.
No, I think we put like 660 on that machine.
Mm-hmm. And we put plates on there, and it is most of the people at the gym have a hard time with that particular machine. I don't see many people doing more than 2 or 3 plates on each side. And in Scorpion's defense, I think the most that he'd seen me do was 585. I did it 3 times, but I had already worked out. So I did 660, and I did 3 sets of 5. Am I lying, Anthony?
No.
And then I did 495 with a close grip incline. You know how hard it is to do a close grip incline. And I did 3 sets of 3 with 495 pounds. To put that in perspective, I mean, like there are people say, "Oh, well, pound per pound, I'm stronger because I can do 250 and I only weigh 150 pounds." Okay, I weigh 380. I'm 6'4". Okay, I'm still benching almost double my weight, and I'm doing it multiple times. Pretty sure I could get 7, but wifey says no. She's like, and she's doing it. She don't want my joints and everything. I'm getting older, and she doesn't want me messing around. But I was doing that because there were some snarky people at the gym, and they were like, I was working out with moderate weight, and they were looking at me like, my muscles have muscles. And so I just put a bunch of weight on there and did this machine, which is like, it's not really a machine. It's like it's free weights, but it isolates your chest right in here, which is most people's weak spots. And so I just did it, and I did it, and they stopped looking at me, and I was like, don't look at me. Okay? Don't. I'm working out with this, and I'm doing 3 sets of 20. Sometimes I do 6 sets of 20. I'm not playing around. You're doing 2 reps with what I do 20 with, and you're looking at me like you're strong. I don't like that, and I don't want to be arrogant or prideful, but sometimes these young people need to be knocked down a notch. And so, and no, they didn't spot me. I didn't need it. But yeah, sometimes it just gets to where, you have to put yourself that, and then I made a video of me hitting a speed bag just to show, because some people were talking some trash, and I was like, sign the waiver, But we're not doing that. We're not doing none of that here. But I just sometimes, you get old like I do, and you feel kind of inadequate when people, you're working out like a normal man, and they look at you like you're a joke or something. You just want to flex on them.
It's actually really dumb to try and make fun of someone for the amount of weight that they're lifting, because the science behind like strength training and muscle hypertrophy, it's not about the amount of weight that you're lifting. It's about the amount of effort you have to put forth to lift that particular amount of weight.
Yeah, it's intensity.
So like if you're a big dude and you go in there and you're throwing around heavy weight like it's nothing, you're actually not working out as hard as someone who's half your size and they're lifting a fraction of your weight, but it's taking every ounce of strength and will they have to get that weight up with proper form. I mean, it's just dumb. Like people who do that, who have that mentality, they actually don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you see a lot of people who do go to the gym, but they always like, oh, I'm not getting any better shape. I'm not doing any better. It's because it's intensity that matters.
Mm-hmm.
It's also most important is consistency.
Yeah.
You were working out with Ed Brown,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy, I mean, what is he like? Former,
what
was he like?
I have it on my.
He's a former
Mr. Olympia.
Mr. Olympia, whatever. Yeah. And I mean, he's. I'm stronger than him. I love Ed. I mean, he's a great guy. I'm not talking trash. This guy, if you want to get strong,
He's Mr. Universe.
Yeah, he can strength train you. But I was tickled that I had a stronger bench than him. And I've trained strong men, and I've trained boxers, and I've trained, kickboxing, MMA guys. I've strength trained college football players. I know what I'm doing when it comes to that. I know how the explosive power that you need, that quick burst, And I can swim a mile. Most people can't do that. And the last time they checked, my heart, it was not enlarged in the size of a watermelon like some people who are really big. And I've never taken one drop of a steroid in my life. It's genetics. But you have to have ambition and the will to feed it if you want to get bigger and stronger. Now, let me say this, and I'm quoting Ed Brown on this one. He says, when he won the competition, he says, you can get bigger without getting stronger, but you're not going to get stronger without getting bigger. Right? Isn't that what he says?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because bodybuilding and strength training are two different things.
Yeah, you're going to get bigger if you're going to get stronger. And he did both. He was a bodybuilding and strength trainer. So, it's just one of those things, it's what you want to do. I believe in this. Anything you put your mind to, and they always say it's like a cliche, well, you can do anything you put your mind to. Well, not really. But if you really hyper-focus and you connect the spirit to the mind, and it controls the body like it's supposed to, you can literally make your body into anything you want. You can do anything you want. We were given the ability to do a lot with ourselves, but we don't do it. Part of it is just pure laziness, and I always hear people talking about, well, there's not enough hours in the day. Well, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be watching the Kardashians, maybe you shouldn't be wasting your time with some of the nonsensical crap that goes on in our world on a day-to-day basis and focus on what really matters. But that's it, folks. Thank you for tuning in.
Kind of got deep on this one, huh? Went all a little bit introspective.
We missed yesterday.
Yeah.
Everybody who tuned in, Quantum Potential, thank you for your question. I'll go back to the not a Nephilim, man. Although I will leave you with this Mandela effect. When I was kickboxing training, because I had to take that and I had to do wrestling and different things. If you're going to do MMA, it's what you do. There's no money in it back when I was young. I'm old now. I'm almost 50. I'm 48. And so, so whenever you go back and you look, I remember being taught when you kick the lower leg, there was one bone down there. If there was this other smaller bone on the outside, which there is now, that's what we've been aiming for.
Like kind of obviously.
Yeah, and we weren't taught that, which is weird. I mean, and now the average person is going to go, well, you just didn't have a good... No, I had some damn good coaches. I mean, there's some people that I can tell you right now that they can coach you up.
I mean, you'd have to be really, really stupid to understand that there's two bones in there, but you wouldn't target the backbone where it's smaller.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to be a great coach or even a decent coach to understand something as simple as that.
And we know some really good jiu-jitsu coaches, wrestling coaches, and some really good kickboxing and boxing coaches.
Yep. Yep.
Good boxing coaches, Scipio, Max Williams, guys over there at Black Sheep.
My dad trained at a really good gym, or my stepdad trained at a really good gym. So
Cooper's.
I was always in contact
Sean
with
Cooper, great guy. He's a jiu-jitsu coach. Rodrigo over at Fight Factory, great jiu-jitsu coach. Go check them out. I'm not getting paid for plugging these guys. They're just really
they're
good.
really good. I mean,
Trammell's over there coaching UFC fighters up in Nevada. I've known him for years.
Cooper had like Tim Kennedy go
Tim
there.
Kennedy, yeah, he's there. What about what's his name? Cobra. Josh Scales. He's an amazing kickboxing coach over there at Black Sheep. Jeff Meadows and Allison Wood. That's and then of course there's what's
Josh
his name?
at Black Sheep as well.
We just said Josh
Yeah, we just
Scales.
said
What's his name over at Blindside? Ciego.
Yeah.
He coaches junior Olympiads, and he's
also the guy we met at the gym.
And then there's Brian Vetta, who
the guy we just met.
Juan Ayala.
Yeah, Juan Ayala. Yeah,
jiu-jitsu
he's
guy.
good, man. He was. I saw him and TJ Little rolling, and TJ's one of Rodrigo's guys, and I was shocked because he took him down and he hook locked him. Anyway, it's fight talk. Anyway, folks, thank you for tuning in. We are appreciative that you're here. Go check out the book. We got the book. The conference is coming up. Buy some tickets and go to the conference, and we can talk. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring a bench, and I'm going to put a bunch of weight up, and I'm going to see if I can hit 700. If you guys go, I'll bench 700 for you. How about that? My wife would never let me do that.
No.
She would be like, no.
And I was gonna say, who's gonna lug all them plates around all the way to Fort Worth?
Here's the thing.
Ain't gonna
Yeah,
be
you're
me.
right. You're right. We're not going to make you do that. But here's what's funny. Nellie doesn't understand. She's if I'm working out with a lot of weight, she thinks that I'm working out with a lot of weight. But y'all tell her all the time that I can do 3 sets of 20 with a lot of weight. That's not a problem. She thinks that I'm exerting myself when it's really that's not enough weight.
Yeah,
I mean, heavy is relative.
It's relative.
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
like-
heavy to me. It's heavy to a person, But
it's like that's a lot of weight, but you're also a lot of weight, so it's
Yeah,
easy for you to pick that up.
and she's just like, well, you're working out with too much. And if I'm over, she'll try to, make the weight go.
we tell her it's like you haven't seen too much.
That's not a lot of weight for me. This is me
mean-
taming it down.
Filling up the whole leg press,
Yeah,
other than having
and then
vein,
having 2 people
yeah,
on top, and you do 3 sets of 20. That's,
that's a bit much.
800 squat, 660 bench. It's like, you're working out with 315. It ain't nothing. There's nothing to it. You just have to, folks, I was going to show you this. This is the St. Benedict, and they have them in keychains. So I would suggest if you feel like you're under an oppression, do that. And
Could you still take that and get that blessed? Would that work?
yeah, I guess you could get a keychain blessed. I'm going to get my medallion blessed.
Mm-hmm.
But did you recognize this?
Oh,
He doesn't know. Thought you were in Japanese culture. Whose clan is that?
isn't that Otis?
That's Oda Nobunaga.
Yeah, I thought so.
All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everybody that donated. We appreciate it. Donations aren't expected, but they are greatly appreciated, especially with everything that's going on right now with the conference and the money we had to put out to get the books produced. Go and buy those books. They are now both available. The Bigfoot Phenomena came out today. Came out early. We thought it did. I want to give a shout out to Eddie Kadi.
He worked
for
hard.
working so hard and getting that done.
With a lot of passion too, which we appreciate.
He was very,
he cared.
He got after it. And then the werewolves and the Dogman Phenomena came out Friday.
Yeah.
Friday, and then today the Bigfoot book came out. Came out 2 days before.
Right when we do our live streams.
Yeah,
Kinda
it was great. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
And the fact that it came out, and I mean, I couldn't be happier. I just hope that I'm nervous. I'm a little bit anxious. I hope that everybody likes it. But if you don't, whatever.
Just send us your address and we'll come beat you up.
Yeah, but we're not going to do that because, guns. All right. All right, folks. We love you. Thank you. Y'all take care of yourselves. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Messenger for friends on Facebook.
Do you have any book suggestions as well?
Book suggestions, email me. Emails right there, joshturnerprtpodcast.com. Don't forget, Tuesday's episode is going to be the podcast episode where we talk about something really crazy that happened. And we have another show that'll come out the next Tuesday. But I feel like I need to tell you this. Hold on. Let me tell you this real quick. We have a really important guest coming on Friday and another one the week after. But we will not be here on the 1st. And that's because we'll be in Fort Worth at the conference. So there will be no show on the 1st. But we are going to try to get the 2nd and the 3rd to have a stream for the conference. Okay? It just depends on how much it's going to cost us and how effective that will be. And it depends upon the setup there. We're going to take a look at it, us and Christopher Jordan, and see what we can do. And then we'll be back. We'll have an episode on the 15th and one on the 22nd and one on the 29th. Those are the hour-long episodes. And then we will be on the 18th and the 20th, we'll have a show. And then on the 25th and the 27th, we'll have a show. And then that's it until September. There won't be anything September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and probably not a 5th, unless we get the stream for Saturday, Sunday, and there's no guarantee. So we'll be out for a little bit, but it'll be because of the conference, and then we'll be back doing what we do. So thank you for everybody who's tuned in. Y'all have a good night.
I was going to say real quick before we ended, if my Instagram's PRT Mushu, and so is my Facebook. So if you've already, sent Wolf a story, but you still want to send it to me too, I'll take them and I'll read them and I'll comment back and I'll say something about it, and at least talk to you about it. So, I just want to put that out.
Yeah.
To kind of offload some of the stories you get.
So, okay, folks, thank you and good night.